Am I live? I guess I'm live. I'm just going to minimize that. Howdy, Space Campers. It's the Rob here. Welcome to Rob World. Tonight we're going to be streaming a conversation between myself and a friend of mine named Alan, and we're going to be talking about essentially the shape of the Earth and faith, or God specifically, and how the two inform each other, of how the one informs the other and so forth. And so, yeah, without further ado, let's... Alan, you there?
Hey,
Hey,
I'm here.
Awesome. So, welcome to Rob World.
Thanks, man.
So,
we spoke.
go ahead.
I was gonna say we spoke last time on Icon Sciences, that channel, and that was a really nice interaction. And I could tell that you're a genuine dude. Same for Matt as well. He's a good guy too.
Yeah, I like Matt. I haven't spoken to him in a bit, but yeah, he's definitely an upright guy. I liked that interaction that we had, and so I figured.
Yeah, me too, man.
I would try to do something similar on my channel as well. So, just for the sake of the audience, I believe we have one, and I am grateful to even have one person in the audience. Thank you, Indie Tiger. Tell us a little bit.
Shout out to that guy.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 32 years old. Like everyone in school, I just, I did okay. I wasn't like super good at anything, but I got through. I always really liked space and stuff, and I was super into it, way more than like the above average interest in it and stuff. And I always believed in all this stuff, and I was fascinated by like the debates and stuff. And then I heard another side of an argument where, sorry, if I try and it's so hard because I'm hearing myself. I need to figure this out 1 sec.
No problem.
It's hard to keep a train of thought.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. All right. So, still doing it.
How about this?
Okay. So temporary solution. I just had to mute Google Chrome entirely, so I can't hear you right now. So I'll just talk for a quick second. So anyway, I was super into space and all that stuff more than like the average person. I love science fiction. Grew up on Star Wars. I grew up waiting on. We're always going back to the moon at some point. Stuff like that. And then when I got older as an adult and with the internet and being able to look things up for myself, I started finding out that a lot of the stuff that's quote unquote proof, could easily be fake, because I grew up in the generation where we all learned about Photoshop and layering and all that kind of stuff and composite images. Like I have friends that could get a PhD in Photoshop, and they just did that. They just did it for fun because they were passionate about it. And big people know about that, like editing techniques, green screening, and all that stuff. And so we'll see presentations from NASA where they're going, hey, we don't even have the technology to fake anti-gravity, and so when we're here on this ISS and doing this somersault, like this is all legit. And while they say that and that they can't fake it, they simultaneously will have a video out showing their training facility where it's how they simulate anti-gravity and how realistic it is and blah blah blah, and they use it for the training stuff. So we get told two separate things, and that's the kind of stuff that that's how you break someone's mind. You just tell them a false reality, and then their truth at the same time, and you just say neither of them is true. Nobody can figure it out. And I'll unmute now so you can talk. Sorry, I've been talking for a minute.
No. Don't worry about it. So okay. go with. I forgot where. I've lost my train of thought trying to figure out where, what I was going to go with that. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then we can go from there. So I am 45 years old. Yay. And I have been interested in science my entire life, as far as back as I can remember. When I was pre-7th grade, I actually wanted to be a geneticist. I literally wanted to be a mad scientist. I wanted to create, mess around with genes and so forth and so on.
Thanks. So you were a couple levels higher nerdier than me, dude.
Well, maybe in terms of math and science, but that's as far as I'll go with that. But in 7th grade, I was in a physical science. So 7th grade was physical science. So physics, chemistry, geology. I don't think we did biology, but there was in that book there was one of these highlight a scientist kind of articles, and it was an article on Vera Rubin, and she discovered dark matter, or she discovered evidence for dark matter, I should say, and it was. And I don't know, I don't remember the article at all, but I remember just falling in love with cosmology, the mysteries of the universe, and from then I knew that I was going to be an astronomer from that day forward. And it's been a dream of mine the entire like I said, since then. But as with all dreams, you have rocky patches. So, pardon me, but I'm going to talk for a little bit in the sense that, because I wanted to tie this both from, not only from a science perspective, but also a faith perspective.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
in about my 9th grade year or 13, when I was around 13 or so, I had a crisis, and I was hospitalized for suicidal ideation. Basically, I told a psychiatrist that I could not guarantee that I would be alive at the end of the week. So, going through that experience led me to confront the faith side of the equation, as it were. I was raised in a family that was Christian, but we didn't go to church. We didn't really talk about God. We didn't really talk about anything from a religious standpoint. The only thing that we had was a joke that my running joke with my father was he had a massive collection of Buddhas, and I had asked him at one point, Dad, why do you have Buddhas everywhere? You're not a Buddhist. He's like, well, I was Catholic during the Vietnam War, and the chaplain kept bugging me to come to Mass, and I really didn't want to go, so I just told him I was Buddhist, and then he started buying Buddhas to prove the point, as it were, and it just kind of went there. But the point being is that I was left to my own devices in terms of finding my own faith, and basically, to make a long story even longer, my faith journey was I first became, in organized religion, I first became a Wiccan, so I was a witch for about 15 years. I was a high priest in 2 covens. One I had formed my own. And then after 15 years, I became dissatisfied with there were a number of theological problems with, and I still feel this way, is that there are a number of theological problems with the Wiccan faith, and my own moral compass was directing me in a different direction, and my relationship with the divine turned to Catholicism. And so I converted and became Catholic for roughly 7 years. And then my then my faith just collapsed. And I couldn't really tell you why. There was no sort of cataclysmic event to explain why my faith had gone away. But now I am slowly, my relationship with the divine is coming back. And so one of the reasons why so that's basically, that's my kind of the two sides of me is that I have been a scientist pretty much my entire life since young childhood. I have been wanting to be involved in science, and then on the other side of it, I've been a man of faith for most of my life, pretty much since I was around 13 or so. Obviously, there were a few years there where I lost my faith entirely, but and for me, the two of them, my faith and my I guess scientific nature have always gelled. They've never, but when I say gelled, they don't. One really doesn't truly inform on the other, meaning that my views of God, my views of the divine, don't shape my views of science, or at least not appreciably. There are a couple of crossovers, but which I could go into, but not appreciably. Certainly, it doesn't affect how I actually approach the scientific method. But on the other hand, if I want to, when I have moments of crisis where, because I suffer from depression, anxiety, I'm probably at this point bipolar 2, I think is the. Anyway.
Dude, no, you're fine, man.
Well, it's more of I'm very keen to be specific in terms of talking about mental illness, because I think too many people are. They generalize it or just throw it under the mental illness umbrella. So, essentially, my bipolar 2 diagnosis is fairly recent. But anyway, so during moments of crisis, I don't go to my science books. I don't go to my astronomy book. I don't go to this to figure out, why I should stick around. That's where faith comes in. That's where.
That's a good foundation to have for your default to turn to a spiritual solution, because nothing here in this material place will fix your problems. So you're already like looking in a good spot. You're already open to something that's real.
Yeah. But so this stream kind of came about because you had put a couple of comments on one of my videos where you seem to hold things a little differently, in that your faith and physical worldview are tied together. Like I think, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you had said something about how the simplicity of the flat Earth allowed you to have a better relationship with God. Is that?
Yeah.
Would that be accurate?
Yeah. So, like, for me, hold on a sec. I gotta mute, and then I'll gather my thoughts for 1 second, then I'll start talking. Okay. Okay. So for me, I was one of those people where I was like, I'm super logical, I'm smart, and I would say overall for most people, I've got a good amount of intelligence. Like I figured things out, and for me, it just didn't make sense that that God would make like we were talking about. It didn't make sense that God would design a system where it starts with a bang out of nothing, or some sort of energy, and then some gas, and millions and billions of years, and then there's like water somehow, and then there's chemicals, and it just takes forever, and then billions of years later, lights that just go on forever. It just once you break it down to that, and then you're like, well, how do you know that? And they're like, well, some math that nobody understands really, except for you have to like specialize in it to figure that shit out, and that's an ignorance on my part. Like I admit that. I'm not trying to downplay that or whatever, but I know that you can come up with structures where if you set the rules, you can make it whatever you want, and if you've never been there to measure the stuff or have anything to compare it to for an actual scale, then everything that you present can be fake. And I've seen so much stuff that's fake that I was like, I really had to rethink. I really had to think what, you know, like you're just like after that shatters your reality, like when you think about that, and you're like, so how did we get here then? Like, what is this place? So, and you then find out that everything that happens up in the sky is like a clock, and it happens. You know, there's a pattern to it. You can find ancient structures that are built that are aligned to star patterns, you know, thousands of years ago, but we're allegedly spinning and traveling trillions and billions of miles since these things were made, but it all still lines up because, you know, the light's so far away or some stuff, and it just takes a long time to get here, and it just keeps lining up perfectly into a clock. Like that just doesn't make sense at all. There's nothing that explains that to me. And then you guys have like orbital mechanics, and you say that all adds up, right? But there's this thing called the three body problem, and you'll have to elaborate more on that, because I watched some videos on it to see how that's, like, you know, quote unquote solved, and it just seems like you found ways that go around it rather than like it all works off of it. And can you use that to predict eclipses? Like, how does all that work? I heard you guys don't even predict eclipses on with the heliocentric model. That you use some other sort of calendar calculation for it.
You have me muted, so
you're good. I can hear you now.
Okay, good. All right. So a few things there. Let's kind of go from the front and go backwards. We have Multi Tom Tom in the audience, and apparently his statement is the globe is scientifically impossible. See what you did there, Tom Tom.
Yeah.
So we can predict eclipses with orbital mechanics just fine, and actually we can do it to the second. We know the duration of, for example, solar eclipses can only be seen by a very small fraction of the population because of the relative size of the shadow of the moon to the surface of the Earth, and we can predict the amount of totality that a particular person is going to experience along that one particular line down to the second. So we can do that very, very accurately, and that has been shown over and over again. For a three-body problem, yes, the three-body problem is...
like, how big of a problem is it for you guys?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a big of a problem. So what I will say this. So there is, when in physics or mathematics or what have you, well, physics really, there are two ways that you can solve a problem. You can solve it analytically, meaning that you can solve. So an equation has certain variables in it. And typically, you'll have a suite of equations or system of equations, and you can use those equations to basically solve for all of the unknown variables in your problem. For the two-body problem, we can do that no problem. We can solve for all of the variables within that system. So if we wanted to know the period, and we know the size of the orbit, for example, and all the other variables, then we can just calculate what that period is going to be. We can't do that with the three-body problem. The three-body problem cannot be solved analytically without making certain assumptions. One of the first assumptions that we make is, or one of the more basic assumptions that we make, is that the third body is so much less massive than the other two as to be considered insignificant. And so we don't have to worry about its effect on the orbits of the other two bodies. And then we can solve it analytically. But analytical solving is not how we really do things anymore, because it has its own limitations. We can still get very good results and get very good confidence solving numerically, or basically using a computer to crunch the numbers and just run the simulation until we get it, until we get the answer that we're looking for to a certain confidence level. There are certain assumptions that need to be built into it, but we are fairly confident that those assumptions are correct. And when I say fairly confident, again, you'd have to acknowledge that space is real, but we've sent satellites out to Pluto, and we haven't missed. And so that is not just a three-body problem. That's what we call an n-body problem. That is a number of gravitational masses that you have to worry about in order to calculate a flight path. So we've been sending satellites out into space for decades now, and we have a pretty good track record, although I have to say that particularly the Soviets really didn't do very well in terms of Mars. They missed the planet entirely. The Brits missed it once.
Dude, I think it's hilarious you guys critique each other on stuff that's not real. That's fucking like from my perspective, that's so funny. It's like they didn't even go to the moon, fucking losers. Like, and then but like, oh man, that's so funny.
Well, see, that's what brings me to the main kind of my main question with it. So I can understand your perspective. I can understand that you've been told from one side. It's almost as if the community is speaking out of two sides of its own mouth. Like, for instance, the example you gave was, we can't simulate or we can't fake being in the ISS, and then you've cited something else that says that look at all the ways that we can simulate the same environment.
Yeah, dude. They'll straight up show you in behind the scenes DVDs of movies of how they have like crazy special effects of how they made, this or that, and it's just like it's like, oh, so you could fake it the whole time if you wanted.
Well, I would ask whether or not it was the same institution making those two particular claims.
Oh yeah, they're all intertwined, bro.
So it sounds to me as if on one side you're talking about NASA astronauts or NASA officials saying we cannot fake this, whereas on the other hand you almost seem to be saying that the movies or Hollywood is the one telling you that you can fake it.
No, NASA also has their own stuff that says it too, but I'm just saying like they'll reveal certain special effect mechanics where they've made things in movies look real or whatever. And it's just like, oh, so if you just applied that, you could show us anything, and it would be quote unquote real, or it would look really convincing.
I've got a counter example for that, but before I get to that, I want to ask you, and I may have asked you this on Science's channel, I'm obviously I'm a professional astronomer. You can actually, I do not hide my identity. For better or for worse, you can Google Rob Parks. You can actually see where I got my degree and what have you. So, if you have any doubts, I can definitely provide you with credentials you can back that up with. I'm a member of the American Astronomical Society, and so the American Astronomical Society has tens of thousands of members. When we have our winter meetings, before the pre-plague times. We had two meetings. We have a summer meeting and then we have a winter meeting. The winter meeting is the one everyone wants to go to. So when you're at the winter meeting, there are literally 10,000 people there, all of whom are professional astronomers. And I'm not talking NASA employees. Yeah. Some of them do work for NASA, but a vast majority of them are not NASA employees. They're folks like me who work for either state or private educational institutions like universities. So I guess my question to you is, are we all factually wrong, or are we lying, or are we both?
One sec. I hit the wrong window. Okay.
It's a good point, Any Tiger.
Yeah. It is a good point. So you guys understand a mathematical framework that explains what you're looking at, but the idea that someone's been to these places and done these things to confirm it, that is really the trickery behind what turns your mathematics system from like a religion into quote unquote science because it's backed up by CGI and fakery. And so to answer your question, Andy Tiger, all these countries, they all operate in a way that we don't see. Like if you think that a guy with dementia is negotiating with a dictator of another country, like that's just like that's low level magic, basically. And if you fall for that, then there's really no point in continuing the conversation because you believe in a thing that's so far beyond like what they say space is. I mean, if you just take a look at these world leaders and these world summits, I mean, these people are like retarded.
We're kind of moving off the subject of astronomy and space. I get what you're saying.
I'll circle back. So they interact on a level that like the stuff that we see on TV, that's all. We don't know nothing about none of that. Where they get their money and how they spend it and what and who funds the countries and the propaganda that's used to rule each country and what's necessary for blah blah blah. That determines who goes to the moon. That doesn't we needed to go to the moon real bad because people were waking up to Vietnam and they dazzled us with the moon landings. Okay, and we can break down how fake those like.
So you're saying that the Soviets didn't need to fake moon landings because they had no there was no geopolitical pressure for them. There was nothing for them to sort of hoodwink their populace.
I'm saying it was super beneficial to distract the American population with it. Because they hit us with what was it? What was that thing that everyone went to with the music and the drugs?
Oh, you're talking about Woodstock?
Woodstock, yeah. They hit us. Then they hit us with Woodstock and then moon landings and all this cultural shit. Because people were waking up to Vietnam and then it turns out that Vietnam was a false flag attack. Like you can look up the Gulf of Tonkin false flag stuff. Hold on. And then the admiral's son is Jim Morrison, the leader of the counterculture of the singer of the Doors. Like he's military intelligence, dog.
I don't know anything about that, so
we're sold scripts.
I can't speak intelligently on that, but I'm going to challenge you on one thing you said, which is that you were saying that astronomers, since we didn't go out and do it, that we are basically just being fed a script, and we're just sort of reciting that script.
Look, let me ask you this: who pays the astronomy department at where you work? Like, who pays your school?
The state. And
the state, dude.
And
bang. But it's the state though.
And it's the students. The tuition. The reason why college tuition is so high is because of the cost. But
we're sold. No, that's because of debt and usury in our fiat system, not because of the education provided. It's slavery. No. Okay.
If you allow me, I would like to...
Sorry, I apologize. You're fine.
Right. So, the thing I wanted to sort of challenge you on was that I have astronomers... Again, we are not... The vast majority of us are not NASA employees. We do get NASA... some of us do get NASA money through grants, but we also get grants through the NSF. We also can get grants from Keck and other private institutions. Now, the thing is, we have looked, we have seen the things that get told to you. Like, for example, the Big Bang, the evidence that we have for the Big Bang, people have actually used satellites to collect that data, and to analyze it and to realize that in fact the universe is expanding from some small location. I want to put that aside for a moment because I believe that there are some misunderstandings of what the Big Bang is. But I'm just saying that as scientists, I personally have used an array of telescopes to image the surface of a star that is not the sun. I have seen star spots move across the surface of another star. The first person to actually be able to do that in a direct way. I have been able to look at data that was collected, again, using a satellite.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Did you see that on a computer screen, or did you see that with your own eye through a lens? Or was this like radio data interpreted through a algorithm and then displayed to you on a screen?
It is the latter. I collected the data from an array of optical telescopes, and then used a pipeline from a collaborator that I know, and put that data together and then recreated that image. Now, my question to you is, are you implying that system is flawed, or because the pipeline that I used to create that image, or basically to reduce that data and generate those images of the star, that was done by a gentleman who is not a NASA employee. He is a professor at a university, at a prestigious university. So in order for that to be faked, he would have to be lying to me.
Well,
he would have to know that So is that what you're implying?
At some point, there's somebody that knows that's in charge of an algorithm somewhere, because someone had to make it. Now, how many people down the ladder that also contributed to making the algorithm prior to like some specific adjustment that could be made by someone separately,
he's the only one who made the algorithm.
Okay.
He wrote it from base code up. Like, there were he had some help with from one or two other people, a grad student and a postdoc of his, who helped him. But the base code is his. Like, he didn't take that from anywhere else.
So have you seen the sodium layer stuff where they say that they shoot a laser up to calibrate this stuff and they can make stars and stuff?
The AO
So if you entered coordinates to look for something, wouldn't it be possible that it could also create the thing that you're looking at? Because why not?
Because, for example, with the sodium target, basically guide stars, that is, if you were to take data on that, if you were actually to basically take a spectrum of that sodium light, all you would see is sodium. And that is not what we see with stars in any way whatsoever. Stars have abundances all over the periodic table. So it would be ridiculously. See, to me, it moves into the realms of disbelief. In order for the stars that we see, the thousands of stars that we see, in order for me to point at a particular star and take data on it, and have that data be manipulated by a projection at all times, that for me is hard to believe.
Yeah. I feel you, dog. It's hard for me to believe. Well, honestly, it's easier to believe than the moon landing, man. Like, have you watched the moon landing, like, in your lifetime? Like, when's the last time you peeped it?
I've from front to back, it's been a while, but I've seen a number of clips that from folks who have tried to debunk the
What do you think about that stuff? Like there's no tire mark for the thing, but there's boot marks, stuff like that. Stuff like there's no shocks on the moon lander. It doesn't leave an imprint. It's made out of tin foil. Like, does any of that raise a red flag?
No, because a lot of those that you've mentioned, I've not really looked into. I've looked into a number, like why are there no stars? That is because of the dynamic range of the camera, which I personally have experience with the CCD camera that I use on this telescope. If I were to say look at Jupiter, for example, if I were to if I took an image of Jupiter and didn't put the exposure time to be really low, Jupiter would wash out the image. I wouldn't be able to see anything in the background, including the 4 bright moons. But if I make the exposure time less, then I can see Jupiter and the 4 moons kind of pop into existence. So it's a very reasonable explanation for why there are no stars in that image. Why is there no flame in under the launch, the Ascender or the Eagle, whatever it's called?
Yeah.
That's because there's no oxygen in the atmosphere, and so there's nothing to burn. And there are we do have examples of rocket fuels that have their own oxidizers, so you don't need an external source of oxygen in order to create thrust. So these are all of these are explanations. And again, the thing is, and what I really want to focus in on is for this part is, I know, like, I can go into another building. I can see what is being labeled as a moon rock. We have one on display. Or we have. Do
you know that all the moon rocks that we've given to other countries, they turned out to be fake? They turned out to be petrified wood and other stuff that's not real.
I have not heard that.
You could quick Google on that. Every country we've given one to, it's all petrified wood.
I will.
And also,
but the thing I wanted to say was, I'm in the field,
right?
So what I'm saying is, are you saying that everyone that I interact with is are they lying, or are they just incorrect? Like, I'm saying the price on our own.
I'm saying the price to fake this and control your mind and have you perpetuate this thing that's not possible, like it creates, when you're told like a false reality and you're like, no, you're wrong, like we're on a spinning ball, but you can't feel it or experience it. It fucks up your ability to discern reality. And
why?
Because you're just being told lies. It's trauma-based mind control. It's like, so if we could talk about black holes for a quick second.
Sure.
So there was I remember in 2018 there was this debate I watched. These two astrophysicists and some physicist lady. You know, I can link the stuff here real quick for you so you can get the names. But anyway, I'm listening to them debate. The one person says, I'm not saying black holes don't exist, but I'm saying when you apply quantum mechanics to them, the singularity theorem violates, blah blah blah. It doesn't work because apparently, removing information from the system or whatever is impossible, right? Is that close to, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What is it called? Information something. I have it written down. I'll come to it. But anyway, so her field uses quantum Hawking radiation to like verify it, and then the one guy says that he's not even sure the Hawking radiation exists. So how does any of this stuff exist? But nobody knows for sure. Like they're having a philosophical debate about what happens at the center of a black hole, and then they're also waiting on quote unquote a picture of a black hole. And then you fast forward to what was released a couple years ago or whatever it was now of that picture of a black hole. And it's just hold on one second, I gotta mute for a second because of the thing. And it's just it's just a radio image run through an algorithm, blah blah blah. It's not an actual image of a thing. Which is classic, par for the course on this stuff. Just because there's no actual image for it. And then like I said, that lady couldn't even question it super hard because to question the existence of them her field of study would break down.
Okay.
And I can, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I've done image reconstruction. I have done pretty much exactly the same thing that lady, or I have done the exact same thing that image, that the black hole image, how that was produced, I've done the exact same thing, pretty much. I haven't used their software, but the principles are pretty identical. They're rooted in math. I mean,
now they're saying black holes are dark matter, though.
what I wanted to say with that is the reason. Yes, from a scientific science communication standpoint, there is something of a disconnect, and it's unfortunate that you think that that you're being lied to. Is that when they say that it's an image, when they say that it's an image of a black hole, that is true, but they don't want to say, it's an image reconstruction, because that's just not as easy to say, and it's really not.
No, but the real bottom line is that that's not an actual proof, right?
It is.
Is it though? Like, could you go to court and prove that? Like, you could go to court and prove it?
With scientific confidence, yes, I could.
Okay, fair enough. I guess. Yeah, that's not a super good example. Okay, fair enough. Because you believe it. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I can basically illustrate to you, because I spent months going through and demonstrating what these images that I created, what they couldn't be. So I actually have essentially error bars on what that image should look like, and they do too. If you read the paper, or if you were to look at the papers, you could see that they have error bars. Like, they are presenting that as the image, but they are also acknowledging that there might be slight variations in what that looks like if you were to stand there in person and see it with your own eyes, or radio eyes, or what have you.
Yeah, I see. My problem is I just don't think it's possible to go and confirm that stuff, man.
Well, so that's kind of the point. Is what I'm telling you is that the scientific community, astronomers like myself, we have confirmed it as far as we can. Now, another thing that science communication doesn't do very well, and I do apologize, I haven't seen this video, so I can't speak on it directly.
Yeah.
But we don't use Hawking radiation to find black holes. Hawking radiation is believed to exist around black holes, but is yet to be definitively discovered. Hawking radiation would, if found, Hawking radiation would be a fundamental discovery in terms of how black holes evolve over time. But they are not. But it is not used to discover them. We discover them through other methods. But when it comes down to, and I wanted to use this and to kind of tie back into the Big Bang thing, is you did point on to something that is a problem within an open question, is that when you look at an object that is really, really small in a gravitational field that is very, very high, where relativity and quantum mechanics intermix, our understanding of physics is very weak. We do not really understand that very well, and there are a number of different avenues trying to look into what the physics of things actually is in that scenario. So, in terms of the black hole, in terms of the Big Bang Theory, if someone is being genuine, the only thing they can tell you is that we know what the universe looked like down to what is known as a Planck time. And that is like 10 to the negative 47 seconds before the Big Bang. And then prior to that, that's where that information breakdown happens. And so we don't know what happened before that time. We don't know what the singularity looked like. We don't know if there was a universe before the singularity. And if anyone tells you, and anywhere on video, I don't care if it's Neil deGrasse Tyson, if he tells you definitively that we know what's going on prior to the Big Bang, he is lying to you, or he is wrong. Because
I've never heard anyone make that claim. Yeah, I've never heard that claim made. The only thing I've heard is that part of the Big Bang Theory, though, it hinges on it comes out of some unknown thing exploded, like unknown energy exploded. That was the source of the explosion. So it's like that assumption on itself is just based on nothing we've ever observed. So why would that apply to lights in the sky?
We have observed that. So let me back up for a second, because I think I was conflating two different things, and possibly I'm not. So we have evidence that the universe was expanding outward. We have evidence based on looking at the recessional velocities of of galaxies, looking at their distances, basically the Hubble law. We can look at the cosmic microwave background. That informs us what the radiation of the early universe looked like, and what basically, if the universe is symmetric and so forth. So we have physical evidence to tell us where that we exist in a universe that has been growing over time. Now, why are we growing over time? We don't really know. Now, is
What's
it
your
that
proof
important
that
that
we're growing
we do
over
know?
time?
I'm sorry, what was that, Alan?
What's your proof that we're growing over time?
One is the Hubble law. If you look at the distance to a galaxy, if you measure the distance to a galaxy and you measure the velocity at which that galaxy is moving, you'll notice that once you get past the local environment, all galaxies are moving away from us, or appear to be moving away from us. And two, the relationship between the velocity and the distance is linear, meaning that the further away you go, the faster the galaxies are moving. And the only geometry that explains that phenomenon is an expanding space. Because we haven't found evidence for something in the localized environment around the galaxy to be pushing it in some direction. So I want to emphasize that when we make these claims, we realize that some of these claims are extraordinary, and we do everything we can to not make them. Like, for instance, my poster back here, the first exoplanet, one of them, which you probably can't see, is Gamma Cephei AB. Gamma Cephei AB, or Latham's planet, was discovered in '89. It wasn't confirmed. That planet going around the other star wasn't confirmed by the astronomical community, wasn't accepted by the astronomical community until about 25 years later, because it was an extraordinary claim at the time, and no one in the astronomical community wanted to accept that was the explanation for the data that he had collected. So while
Can you find me a picture of that?
Of what?
Of that planet, or can you bring that in closer?
It's just a postcard. It's not an actual picture of the planet.
It's a cartoon?
Well, it's a poster of postcards from, as if you were traveling to the other place.
So it's all right.
Now, I don't want to get into the weeds. What I really want to know is,
how could you possibly know that that's a planet based off of that postcard?
No, it's not based off that postcard.
No, I know. I was just kind of messing with you there. But what data have you seen that suggests that? Do you have anything that I could look at real quick? Because I Wikipedia'd it. There's no picture of it, and it just says it's a small red dwarf, brown dwarf, or it's either a red dwarf or a massive brown super dwarf, because those are, that's a different color of light and a different
actually, brown dwarf. Astronomers are literally crap at naming things, and so brown dwarf does not mean brown. I don't know where the term brown.
Oh no, I know it's not about the colors. It's either this classification or that classification. We're not sure, but it's somewhere in between there, because that's the kind of nonsense shit they hit you with, where they're like, it's in this spectrum of this. That's nonsense. You either know or you don't.
So yeah, that's a good a valid point. In that, why do we have to know everything? It seems as if science needs to either have definitive answers or not. You don't seem to be very forgiving in terms of when science says, we don't know.
How often does science say that?
Pretty often. For example,
look at the last year of what was on television. What did science have to say about what they knew for sure?
Well, you're not going to make a news report out of, hey, by the way, we don't know this. Like, that's not a breaking news story. So they're only going to tell you, breaking news or science communication.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was referring to the pandemic narrative.
Okay.
They all seem to know that it was in everyone's best interest to make medical decisions for them and suggest that they do things and incentivize things to participate in a medical trial and give up their DNA for free.
Well, I don't know about the give up the DNA, but the
I would love to talk to you off stream about some stuff because I have a feeling you don't want to get clapped off YouTube. But
yeah, that's basically it. And also, this is kind of going off of the.
I was going to say,
I want to kind of stick to generalities.
Yeah, dude, I know you want to stick to generalities, but I can make a much better case for the control mechanisms that we live under and why it would be so important to trick people like you into spreading this fake religion.
I mean, you'd have to trick not only me but all of my colleagues.
Yeah, they're masters of trickery, dog. Like the people the organizations that quote unquote take credit for this on the surface level narrative that you can find of Freemasonry and stuff. They all think that that's hilarious, and they brag about it.
Well, what I want to know, or what I'm kind of want to concentrate on, and you're right, I do want to not get flagged by the YouTube gods.
Yeah, and that in and of itself should tell you something, that we can't speak freely amongst ourselves as men and talk about current events without someone telling us that.
Yes, but I don't. I have never subscribed or prescribed to the idea that we live in absolute freedom.
No,
I don't believe that we do. I don't believe that. I believe that society does have rules, and we have to sacrifice certain civil liberties in order for society to exist.
I think that's a trick, man. I think a lot of that's a trick. I think if you give up too many of those, then you end up giving up all of it, man.
Do you speed?
Do I speed? No.
Why?
Because I'm responsible for the things that I do in my life, and I don't want to take an unnecessary risk. And
so you think that?
But it's my decision to follow along with that. It seems like a good practical guideline.
But that is a speed limit. That is taking away your right to drive at any speed that you want to.
I choose to comply with it, though. I've seen people fight.
Just because you choose to comply with it doesn't mean that it's not a limit on someone's. Because
that's true.
I speed. I speed. So it's limiting my personal freedom.
That's true. I fear the consequences of being in the wrong on that, because I know how easily you can get slammed on stuff like that with insurance and liabilities and stuff.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, it's cool that you do that.
Yeah, I just, the point I'm making.
You're absolutely right.
That there's, we as a society, we have to give up certain certain limits or certain rights in order to protect the well-being of other folks, which goes into the COVID issue of the guidelines that were coming out were in place, one would hope, because the scientists involved were looking out for other people. So we had to give up our freedom to not wear face coverings in order to protect the lives of other, protect against the chance that we might spread the disease onto someone else. It's very much like the speeding example. You don't speed because there is a chance that something bad is going to happen. I wore a mask because there was a chance that something bad was going to happen.
Let me counterpoint here. Okay, sure. I've seen, or plus you could see in your life accidents from speeding and people being careless, like texting while driving. Like, you could choose to text and drive, but you can find results that are real of people dying as a result of that stuff, right? So you could argue that there's a a practical reason to following a safety guideline like a speed limit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's never if contagion as described by the mainstream narrative has never been proven, why would it make sense that every news agency all told everyone to do the same thing and only had scientists on that told everyone to do the same thing? And then also, if you look into, let me mute for a second, because if I get too far off topic and you need to get a red flag, just throw your hands up and I'll stop talking. Okay. So if you know anything about the PCR testing stuff, or if you've looked into that, that stuff, according to the official narrative and science behind it, it can't detect the virus. And then number two, the guy that made the thing said that if you run it through a cycle more than 24 times, that you're really just cooking the books. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I just realized that this might get flagged that might be construed as false information on COVID.
But you could Google it. Like this is legit facts.
Okay.
That's the crazy part, because I wouldn't come here and talk to you about that. I can give you links to this stuff.
Okay.
I'll email you afterwards. So basically, when you cycle it more than 24 times, you're just and then to say that you're doing a study off of that's medical fraud. And then to use that data to say that there's a pandemic, they're just simulating it, and they're using the test to do. I'm gonna mute because I'm doing the echo thing. Okay, if red flag again comes up, and I'll. Okay. So they've constructed this system, and so people that work in PCR test labs, it's like, how could they be in on it? Surely some of them would know. None of them ever spoke out though, and you didn't see any of them on any mainstream news source, and you could look up this information about the PCR test yourself. So like you can obtain the information, but the TV screen won't tell you, and that's the real distinction of of just people's willingness to follow quote unquote science because they say a science man told them. And I'm going to link you an article real quick that I want you to go over. I'll link it in the private thing. This isn't an example of flat Earth, but this is an example of how they just use math to lie to us. So in the link I linked you, this guy, he's a political guy. He was a political guy on YouTube. He would cover those types of narratives. And when I thought that sort of stuff was real and bought into those paradigms, I followed him because I thought he was talking quote unquote truth. But he's a nice guy. That has nothing to do with it. But anyway, he's not a flat earther or anything. He's he believes in all that kind of stuff. And but anyway, he had an astrophysicist on to debunk the global warming climate stuff, because the math that they use is based on a flat Earth and the sun hitting it 24/7, like at all angles and stuff. And so I linked the thing. He breaks down the math. If you can go over it real quick, maybe we can talk about that, because if that's exactly as described, that's just a perfect example of how they'll just lie and no one checks the work and no one calls it on it, and they invent another crisis that they're going to be the solution for. Because it's classic problem action solution with these guys. So I'll unmute now.
Okay.
Okay.
I promise you, I will look at that and I will see what's going on. I suspect one of the issues at play is that in order for physics to evolve, or in order for physics to progress, we have to make certain underlying assumptions in order for us to actually get a handle on anything. Because if you start talking about things like, for example, something falling through the outside my window, for example, that motion can actually get really complicated depending on the level of precision you want, because it's more than just gravity pulling it down. You also what if the level of precision you're trying to measure with is a complete fictional system where it's just where it's no different from laying out the framework for how the lore for Game of Thrones would work or something. Like if you were trying to write you have to keep it in canon, so it has to obey Newton laws and all that kind of stuff. Because you already have the framework established, so anything that you see with the lights, you can just explain it. Let me ask you this. Do you think that I do that?
Yeah, man. I think I think you've been tricked into doing that.
Tricked into doing that. So when I'm looking at a and don't worry, I'm not going to take offense to anything.
No, you're good.
So
And I don't mean that you're a bad person or anything, or that you're stupid, but I'm telling you, man, they have ways of tricking people, and especially if you're smart, they'll use that against you. They'll use your morality against you. Look at how they used 9/11.
So what I'm going to ask is, so you have two different narratives. You have the mainstream, what we would say is the mainstream science narrative, and then you have the narrative of folks like what you link to. Why do you choose to believe one over the other?
Okay, hold on one sec. I don't believe one over the other, but they'll point out inconsistencies in their own stories, which is what I find like the fascinating part of how the whole mind control stuff works.
So hold on. So when you say they will pick out inconsistencies in their story,
I'll
the mainstream, or
I'll find inconsistencies in mainstream stories that go against science or whatever they said last week, and that's.
Could it be that the inconsistencies arrive from poor communication rather than an actual intent to deceive, or accidental intent to deceive?
I would argue no, because of the degree that if you watch anything on the ISS, that's all fake. That's all purposeful. Like, it's all to deceive and control our minds. You're basically the elevated priest class. So there's this guy that was doing some YouTube activism, quote unquote activism, but he was going across country on tour asking people about the heliocentric model and talking about some of the points of flat Earth and stuff. And he was off.
Nathan Thompson.
Nathan Thompson. No, this guy's name is Witsit Gitsit.
Austin Witsit was friends with Nathan Thompson. They actually had a falling out. That tour actually had the two of them together, and then Nathan turned out to be a complete d-bag. And anyway,
oh, really?
So yeah, I know who Witsit is. So yeah, Keith, please go on.
Yeah. So anyway, he was asking people, offering $100 for people to answer questions about the heliocentric model, and it was just like, how far away is the sun? What's the radius of the Earth, and how many times does the Earth spin around in a day? Which everyone should be able to clap that one out. But surprisingly, there was tons of people that didn't know it, but they all believe in the ball. And then so it's like, have they even thought about it? Like, I've had discussions with people about flat Earth and stuff, and there's stuff that they think that they have an understanding of, and they'll try and explain it, and it's like they literally don't understand it either.
But because so you have random folks on the street who cannot tell you what the distance to the sun is, what our linear velocity is in terms of spin or orbital motion. I don't know why they would need to know that. Like, there are a number of things within biology that are real that I have no clue about whatsoever. It's not because I don't think it's because
that's true, but there's probably some stuff. There's probably some basic elementary stuff that we should all be taught, but we're not, unless you go into some specialized field and go into debt for it.
Oh, possibly. But the thing is, the issue is, the folks that believe in the ball but haven't, as you say, looked into it, they just simply trust what they're being told. And as far as I know, folks like me, who are the ones telling them, we haven't really, where are we violating that trust? Where have we violated that trust with you?
Well, folks like you, the people that, that don't know that they're in on it, you're just, to me, you're just doing your thing. You believe in it. You're not,
well, I've done experiments and observations which have all supported itself, contributed to this, and the results that I get are compatible with things that I've been told. Like, they're not.
So what experiment have you done where you've seen water wrap around a sphere?
Well, there's surface tension, so you can basically, there are those. I've never done it, but I've seen the ball. Like if you've seen a large marble statue fountain, and the water will stick to that ball because of surface tension.
If you stop pouring the water, though, it doesn't stick, right? Like
it's not going to stop pouring the water, then the water
it's not going to hold. It's not going to hold. Well, okay, then if it was spinning, it would also fling the water off, right?
Well, it is spinning. It's spinning very slowly. I would have to look one up, but I have seen a moving ball with water on it, moving slowly, and it's not flinging the water off.
If you stop the water flow, though, what happens?
Then the gravity of the Earth pulls that water down to the ground, or to the
base. If there's not a constant flow of water, like it's not possible for the oceans to be held to a ball like that while it's spinning.
Gravity works.
How does it hold that? But I can jump. But it holds the oceans from people going up to Australia or upside down.
Let me turn that question around on you. What would cause the oceans to go up?
What? I'm sorry. What do you mean?
So you said your example was, why can you jump? Why can you jump if gravity is pulling you down? My question to you is, why? What would be prompting the oceans to jump? In order for the ocean to go up, something has to be pushing it up. What would that be?
Because if it's a ball and it's spinning, it's going to fling water off. Like gravity's not going to hold it together like that.
But
there's nothing that shows that.
Do you know how much force would? So you're right. So centripetal force would throw a water off of a spinning ball. But do you know how much force actually would be applied to the oceans with respect to the amount of force that is keeping them onto the Earth?
It's claimed that centripetal force causes a 15-mile bulge around the equator, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when a plane flies over it, why does it never change altitude when it goes over this bulge? There's no measure.
That 15-mile bulge is over a massive amount of.
Would it be fair to say you can't measure it?
Yeah, you can measure it. You can measure that. So if you measure the distance, that bulge you're talking about if you measure the distance from the North Pole to the South Pole, let's call that X, and you measure the distance from one side of the Earth to the exact opposite side of the Earth along the equator, that would be X plus 15. So that.
Bro, I don't. But you're assuming the North Pole distance, bro. Like
no. I'm just explaining to you when they say that there's a 15-mile bulge, that's what that is. That's what they mean by a 15-mile bulge, is that the polar or the radial distance is longer than the polar distance. And I'm going to stop you right there because that's a classic Witsit. I am not assuming anything about the radius.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, didn't mean to come at you like that. Honestly,
no. That's all right. It's all right. I would fail my fandom to MC Toon if I did not point out the fact that we have spherical measurement. We have surveyor data, which MC Toon tried to explain to Witsit. We have surveyor data that calculates what the radius is. It doesn't assume anything. It actually calculates it. So, but that's kind of getting off topic. It's more of, I want to kind of come back to really quickly, and then I kind of want to move on to
let's come back to the math narrative where they were using the greenhouse stuff. Are you able to look at that real quick?
Oh, I don't want to, because I think that will basically derail, that we can go down a long rabbit hole when it comes to climate denialism or climate change.
No, I'm not saying things aren't changing. But I'm saying the whole global warming narrative where we're the bad men and it's our fault, and then they fly around in private jets to promote their bullshit. Like, that's all fake. And it's all
hold on. So when you say that the narrative that what it sounds like to me is that you feel that you are being told that the Earth is warming and that we are the bad people, and that the people telling you this are ignoring what they're saying and flying around doing whatever the fuck they want. Would that be accurate?
I'm sorry. What was that last part?
The people that are telling you that you're bad are going out, flying, drinking, killing seals, doing whatever they want to do.
So they'll use all kinds of propaganda. Oh, let me mute for a second because the echo thing. So they'll use all kinds of propaganda to push a narrative, right? And one of the narratives is that there's our carbon footprint is too high. We need to lower our carbon footprint. And it's like, meanwhile, we got all these corporations that have that dump chemicals in rivers and stuff in India. We dump stuff right into the ocean. We dump trash right into the ocean. All these masks that they got people wearing around, that's biohazard material, but we just throw that in the trash can or on the ground. Like, I've seen so many masks on the ground. Like, it's not about health or environmentalism. They pay our farmers to make corn syrup so they can make corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup, which just poisons us, keeps us obese, keeps us in a state, it keeps us docile, basically. And then we get dazzled with bullshit and told that we're the bad people, while they use these fake idols to promote narratives. Like, they use that little girl and they say you can't criticize a child or whatever type thing, and this little girl is going to talk about the future, like, and people are like, go back to school, little girl. Like, I'm glad that she wasn't in school, because those are just indoctrination camps anyway. And so that's kind of funny. But and then they'll use like Leonardo DiCaprio they'll like cash in on like these actors, these celebrities, these stars. They get people to worship stars. Like, do you see that connection there? Like, that's basic low level word magic that's done here. And that shit's, you can find all kinds of synchronicities in words like that. I just think that stuff's fascinating. Complete side note, no science to it, just a self-interest that they're also called stars, and so you get it.
Yeah. So, first thing is, the corporations aren't the ones peddling the narrative or I shouldn't say peddling. The corporations aren't the ones saying that global warming is man-made. Actually, quite the opposite. It's the corporations, particularly the big oil companies, that are combating the science that illustrates that we are, in fact, experiencing climate change, and that climate change is due to human activity. So I don't know where that comes in. So yes,
it's a fake narrative to tax people.
They are polluting, and that's the problem. We need to prevent the corporations from polluting, but they are actually the enemy. Or no, they're not the enemy.
They are the
problem. They are the problem. But they aren't the ones pushing the. So I don't understand how you can you can bring in the corporations to this argument, when that's precisely the argument that we're trying to make, is that these corporations are exacerbating the human element to climate change. And so, in terms of celebrities, yes, the reason why they use celebrities is because, for whatever reason, people listen to them. I don't know. I don't like it.
Because it's to drive fake narratives.
If
it's to worship anything other than God, so that they can be led astray by stuff.
I don't know, but
that's why they own the whole industry.
Well,
have you watched the movie lately?
I think that would be a very good segue into the faith portion of this. In that, so you were saying that basically, I don't know what the words you were using, but that something to the effect of, let's try to stick with flat Earth and use that as a analogy or an example of everything else. Okay. But so the idea that flat Earth is the proponents of a spherical Earth are in fact attempting to convert you from the true faith in God. Like, that's something I'm curious to know, where the roots of why you would believe that. Because, as I said, I'm a man of faith, or have been a man of faith for most of my life. But I've also been a man of science for that and longer, and I've never felt that dichotomy. I've never felt that pressure from learning that the Earth is a globe somehow invalidates my relationship with God. So
it might not invalidate it for you, but it's just broad spectrum programming and it works at different levels for people. And because you have a different level of understanding of it, the impact of the propaganda is different on you. Does that make sense?
okay.
So through my limited understanding of the propaganda, like I'll see through it through ways that maybe you don't see it because you think that you have an understanding of it or some trust in it that it's real.
Okay. So
and for me, that trust is gone, and the only thing that really makes sense is that so like you were just saying about that curve. So like it's not measurable, or it's measurable. Just real quick, you said it was measurable.
You're talking about the bulge? Yes. It's measurable. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that really.
It uses it basically.
I've tried to look into it myself, and I haven't found it. Like
so, what I would suggest
is there a way that you could explain it to me real quick? That it, of how you know that it's measurable.
All right. So what you'll want to Google is something called spherical trig. So if you look at, basically you have a triangle. If you take a triangle, just a triangle on a sheet of paper, like so.
Yeah.
If it's flat, the angles here will all add up to 180.
Right.
So
okay.
All three of those add up to 180. But if you take this and you make it concave, then what you'll find is that these angles, when you add them up, will actually be greater than 180. And if it's a saddle shape, basically where it's something like this, then the angles will actually add up to less than 180 degrees. That's geometry.
Okay.
And so what they do is and again, I have to hawk MC Toon. MC Toon's website, mc2.net, he's got the actual data on this.
Who's MC Toon?
MC Toon. He is a globe. He is a flat Earth debunker. He debates with people all the time. He's a good guy, and he specializes only in the face of the Earth and 5G.
What does he have to say about 5G? That's interesting.
I'm going to point you to MC Toon's channel, and I will let you contact him to find out more about that. But if you go to his website, and actually let me see if I can find it. There we go. Put that in the chat. If you go to his website, somewhere on the website, well, actually, I can look at it now. He has evidence, basically 6 measurements of the radius of the Earth, and he has all of this stuff listed. He has the books involved, and I think at some point he actually has data from a survey that was taken. And so, but in brief, what this is that there is a particular survey where they stood on a high place. They looked at 2 other points on the that were distant away from them, and then measured the angle in this direction between point A and point B.
Yeah.
They go to point A. They then measure the angle from point B to point C. They go to point B, and then they measure the angle from point A to point C, and then they add up those angles. If the Earth is flat, then those angles should be 180. If the Earth is concave, then the angles are greater than 180. If the Earth is somehow saddle-shaped, then it would be less than 180. And what they found consistently is that the angles of a triangle on the Earth measured at great distance, were always larger than 180. And from that, the amount that it's greater than 180, that is where you get the you calculate what the radius of the Earth is.
Okay, I'll have to look more into that guy's site. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, definitely check out MC Toon. Like I said, he's a good dude. I believe he's a man of faith, but I don't want to speak for him.
MC-2.com?
MCToon.net.
Oh, Tune? T-U-N-E?
MCTOON.NET.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, MCTOON.
Flat, look, okay, here we go. I'll look at this later.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And he's got a YouTube channel, so definitely check out all of that. He does some. He holds debates pretty much weekly, concerning about the proofs that he has for about the Earth being a sphere, and that for him 5G is not harmful. But I will leave you to him because I know almost nothing about 5G, so I can't speak.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear his side of it because, depending on what you Google, the TV screen will show you whatever you want. So I do like to hear other perspectives of stuff.
He is a trained. I think his profession is he is a computer programmer, but he is trained in electrical engineering, so he does have expertise in radio communication. So
well, you know that guy Bob from Globebusters.
Bob Nodell.
Yeah, he's electrical whatever guy too, and he's got some thoughts on 5G and how it works.
Yeah. I've been needing to look into Bob because I don't like he admits that there is a downward bias or something akin to gravity, but his explanation for what gravity is electrical in nature. But
that we'll see. Like that explanation makes more sense because according to you guys, right? You have the LIGO system or the LIGO labs, right? You're familiar with those?
Yeah. Okay. So I used to work at LSU. I'm very familiar with LIGO.
Nice. So they're allegedly measuring gravitational waves from a black hole from 13 million years ago or something like that. Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
Yeah, the old BM merger, dude.
BH merger, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, you have two black holes which are spiraling into each other. They slam into each other, explode. We see a gamma ray burst. We get.
So has that ever been used to detect any gravity from the moon or the sun or anything like that? Like if it's that sensitive that it can detect that, can it? What else can it detect? Like
Funny you should say that.
Can it
Funny
detect?
You should say that because it's not that sensitive. Because gravitational waves are minute. The scenario that I just described, where you have two things that are literally 10 times the mass of the sun, and that are really, really small. They're spiraling in upon each other, and then they merge, and then they blow up as one of the most catastrophic events in the universe. That produces an effect that is barely detectable by LIGO. When you're talking about gravitational waves that are produced by the moon around the Earth or the Earth around the sun, there's no way LIGO is going to pick that up. We don't have the technology at the moment to pick that up.
So how do you so then it's only verification that exists is math, right?
No. Well, I mean, I guess yes. So what they actually do, and I know this is probably going to make it less convincing to you than not, but
no, but be honest about it because if you're not, I'll never be able to receive it. So like now's the chance to it's all hinging on you, man. No pressure.
So what they do is so basically they get an interference signal from two arms of their interferometer. Basically, it's an interference pattern. You get the same kind of interference pattern by basically shining a light through two slits. It's a very well
Well,
understood.
wasn't that like the Michelson-Morley experiment?
It's similar. It's very similar to that.
So how does this differ? And like because like isn't it the claim that didn't work or prove anything or something?
No, what the Michelson-Morley experiment disproved was the idea that we are moving through a stationary medium. So if Michelson-Morley had been a positive result, if Michelson-Morley had actually detected the ether, then LIGO would have to take the ether into account when trying to detect gravitational waves.
Okay.
But because the ether hasn't been detected, there's nothing to take into account.
Okay.
And so what LIGO does is basically these two lasers shoot out, hit the mirrors, come back, and they interfere with each other and they produce a certain pattern.
Right.
Now, if the length of travel in those legs changes for any reason, that pattern is going to change. And so what the folks at LIGO do, they create a massive catalog of what happens if you take a 10 mass black hole, you take a 10 solar mass black hole, a 13 solar massive black hole, you spiral them together, and you explode them. What would the interference pattern look like if the gravitational waves hit the detector? Then they do the same thing again, but say, all right, this time it's a 10.1 solar mass black hole and a 12.9 solar mass black hole. And they look at that pattern.
Okay, real quick. I don't want to wits against you, but aren't we assuming black holes? What was the evidence for a black hole again?
So the evidence for black holes are massive amounts of energy being generated in regions where we cannot spatially resolve any physical object. There are gravitational effects for supermassive black holes. There are gravitational effects. We have a whole bunch of stars orbiting around an empty part of space. Let's see. We also have.
So it's the result. So it's the result of something you don't understand. Like you don't understand why they're orbiting around this thing, and therefore there must be like a gravity well there or something. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't phrase it that way. What we see. This has actually won the Nobel Prize, and I'm going to flex a little bit in that my academic grandmother got the PhD. Andrea Ghez. She got a PhD for her work in this arena, and she was the advisor to my academic advisor. So, a little bit of flex there. But what she found, what she did was, she looked at the center of the Milky Way galaxy with very high angular resolution. She could actually resolve the individual stars in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. What she saw was we saw these stars, but she didn't see anything else. She only saw these stars, and then she looked at this region for like 10 years, and she kept taking measurement after measurement after measurement, and she noticed that the stars moved. And based on the motion, you could fit those motions. You could create orbits, or basically match orbits to those motions, and so you can they know the positions. I haven't really looked into that too far into it, but I imagine they also had velocities. But in any event, they knew what the motions of these stars were, and from that they were like, all right, we have this observational evidence of stars moving very, very quickly in a localized area. The gravitational masses of all of the different stars is insufficient to cause this motion, so there has to be something else there to cause it. So what you can definitively say is that we have strong evidence that there is a very, very massive object at the center of the Milky Way galaxy that does not put out any EM signature across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. It does not put out visible light. It does not put out gamma ray light. It does not put out X-ray light. It does not radiate heat. it just interacts gravitationally with everything.
So how do we know? So how do we know that it gets rid of energy? Because like, wouldn't it have to get rid of energy to be in line with the law of thermodynamics, where something with entropy? Like for what it's consuming, doesn't it also have to put out that same energy, like transform it? You know what I mean?
So the black hole at the center of our own galaxy isn't consuming anything. It's not radiating any energy. That's kind of the problem.
So how does it even exist? Why doesn't it collapse in on itself or something? Right? Shouldn't it do that?
That's the problem, is that we don't know what the very center of that black hole looks like, because we get into a region where relativity and quantum mechanics breaks down. We will throw out terms like singularity, and we will say that the center of a black hole is something that has a certain mass with no radius.
Dude, you know what else gets me about black holes? Aren't they attributed to Stephen Hawking? Like, didn't he discover the math on them or something?
No, he did not.
What was his role in it?
So,
or Hawking
I'm going to answer
radiation?
this question in a second. But
okay.
So what Hawking suggested, or what Hawking got his Nobel Prize on, was something called Hawking radiation. And so what he believed was that one of the sort of problems, as it were, when it comes to universal or cosmology was, all right, if you have all of these stars that are born, and you have all these massive stars that we believe, or we have evidence will turn into black holes fairly quickly in their life, if we have all of these stars being born and then dying in generations before you even get to the current epoch, where are all of these black holes? Why don't we see more evidence that these black holes exist? And so Hawking's explanation for this is that black holes will actually shrink over time and explode. And so the way that they do this is through Hawking radiation. So we know, we have evidence for what's called spontaneous particle creation.
So wait a second.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's not putting out any energy, how are you detecting Hawking radiation on it?
If you remember, I said earlier, we haven't detected Hawking radiation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Hawking radiation is at this point is theoretical, but it does have prediction. It has predictive qualities. So if we have technology that is sensitive enough to detect the byproducts of Hawking radiation, and we can actually find a black hole, and the way we do this is we will, in order for this to work, in order for us to say, yes, we have found Hawking radiation, we will need to have found a black hole through a completely independent way, like probably gravitationally. We would have had to have detected this black hole through some completely independent way, and then looked specifically for Hawking radiation, and then detected it. And at the moment, we have not done that.
Okay.
We have not been able to do that. But Hawking's explanation seems to be very sound, and so his explanation, we have spontaneous particle generation, where you have a gamma ray which has been emitted by a supernova somewhere, is streaming through space, and then all of a sudden, again, when I say all of a sudden, that means I don't understand how that process works. It might be that no one understands how that process works, but or somebody has a very good idea, but I myself do not understand it very well. So all of a sudden, you have that gamma ray will turn into an electron and a positron, which is a particle of antimatter. It has identical characteristics to the electron, except it has an opposite electrical sign.
And you're able to detect this?
Yes, in particle accelerators.
Well. Okay.
I know.
All right.
Hey, Ian. One of my former students is in the audience.
Cool, hey, so real quick.
Oh, I wanted to answer this question right here.
Oh, yeah.
The supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy is not what determines the spiralicity of a galaxy. that is dependent on the speed of the collapse. If the speed of the collapse is fast enough, then the conservation of momentum doesn't have enough time to spin this thing out, spin the galaxy out into a disk. And if it is fast enough, or so, if the collapse is quick, if it's faster than the spinning outward mechanism, then it will create an elliptical galaxy. If it is less fast, then it will create a spiral galaxy, and that is dependent on the overall mass of the galaxy, which does depend on obviously depends on the supermassive black hole at the center. But we see no evidence to suggest only galaxies that have supermassive black holes of this size or higher are spiral, whereas these are elliptical. We don't see a correlation between black hole mass, supermassive black hole mass, and galaxy morphology, if that makes any sense, or galaxy shape. I hope that answers that question. All right, so sorry. Yeah, particle acceleration. So apparently, you were not a big fan of trusting CERN either.
Well, don't they have? Yeah, they got. Isn't there? Well, they have a statue of some goddess of destruction there, and then there was that weird Halloween fake ritual they did. That was like quote unquote a prank, but they're all in the gay ritual stuff. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if
yeah, there was like some weird mock satanic ritual they did there as a Halloween prank or something. Like,
honestly, that's probably because they get a lot of conspiracy theories thrown at them, and they're just trying to poke fun at being the butt of.
I respect that view on it. I respect that view on it. Hold on one second. I gotta mute this thing. It's doing the thing. Okay. Real quick. Okay, so I wanted to show you a video real quick. If we could watch a video, it's it'll be the clip's like 2 minutes long, and it shows like a recent presentation of the Mars drone thing taking off. And I wanted to see if you could explain this or if it seemed weird to you, because a lot of where this fake stuff breaks down is in the presentation. Like the math side of what you're explaining and stuff. Like I get you guys are measuring stuff and you've seen some stuff, but the stuff that they fake, it's just like, why do they do this? Like, so, or what's your take on it? Because I have a theory on why they do it. So I'm asking you more, just like, what's your take on this as someone who's looked at you've probably looked at Mars before, right? And stuff. So we can
I've taken pictures.
We can get your opinion on this.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So. This is the video. You're going to want to mute the audio because he cusses a lot. It's not necessary to hear.
You're sending me the link? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That timestamp should take you to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, right before a drone takes off on Earth showing dust and stuff.
All right. Hold on a second. All right. Okay. Let's do that. All right. Where is... I've lost... Rob Can't Tech. Hashtag Rob Can't Tech. All right. Sharing screen. Share screen. All right. We'll share that screen. Window.
And then if we could circle back to the moon landing after this.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. What am I doing here? Yep. Rob Can't Tech. Going to this.
Yeah, like 238 should do it. Yeah.
I think we're there.
Okay. So he shows dust.
I went to the wrong. I need to go back. There we go. All right. Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. Pause. 238. Got it.
Okay. So here he's just showing a drone take off on Earth. This is what it looks like on a dusty environment.
Yeah.
You see the dust kicking up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just so we can get a comparison.
Yeah.
And then one sec, he'll play the Mars clip in a second.
I want you to take note of the size of those rotor blades.
Yep, one sec.
Sure.
Have you seen this before?
I have.
Okay, cool. Okay, so if you've seen it, then we can just continue on from here. Then, if you've seen
No,
that.
I love this dude.
So does that make any sense to you that
It does.
that's possible?
It does.
How?
All right. So the question becomes. Let's see here. The question becomes, and actually, let's do it that way. The question becomes, how much dust would one expect to see being blown up on the Earth? Because the Mars environment is not anywhere similar to the Earth in any way. It's the atmosphere on the Earth, or the atmosphere on the surface of the Earth. The atmosphere on the surface of Mars is about what? 1% or 0.5% the atmosphere on the Earth.
It's claimed that a windstorm though on Mars going 60 miles an hour could create a dust storm. So if 60 miles an hour can move dust, that drone should move dust, right?
I don't know, because
come on, man.
Not come on, man, because did you notice the size of those rotors?
On the one on Earth?
On the one on Earth comparison to Ingenuity. Did you notice the size of the rotors between them?
Well, hold on. We could look up the specs, because it's he mentions what type it is. One sec. Oh, I have to listen to the audio, but we could look up the exact specs.
I can tell you that the rotors on Ingenuity are far larger than the rotors on your conventional drones.
Okay.
Do you know why?
No. Probably because of the less atmosphere that needs to get more drag.
Precisely. There needs to be a larger you need to have a larger surface area on your wing in order for it to create enough of a pressure differential to create lift. That's what creates the lift, is the pressure differential. It's not a downwards thrust. It's a lift. And so on the Earth, you have those little rotors spinning around. That creates a lift, but that also, the movement of the blades on the atmosphere causes a downward thrust, as it were, a downward blowing of material.
Okay.
That downward blowing of material is not what's driving that aircraft drone upward.
So you're saying that it's only accounting for the lift, like the lift isn't acting on the dust. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Because there's not enough air to blow in like the direction from what's causing the drag or whatever. You know what I mean?
Correct.
You follow me? Okay.
Yeah. So the blades are large enough to create a pressure differential, which allows for enough lift for that very, very light aircraft to pop up. But the downward displacement of air that the blades create on the Martian atmosphere is insufficient to blow any debris around appreciably.
Now, do you have a small scale test of something that I could look at of that? Are you familiar with any examples of that, of like a vacuum experiment? Because
I'm not.
I've seen. Sorry, I know you probably get asked that. And that's like, oh my god, these fucking people with their experiments, right? No, I feel you, man. I'm just saying, because if I could see like a small scale of it, like I can upscale it in my head, and I'm like, good to go, I got it.
You know, I mean, sadly, you run into a double-edged sword with that, because though that obviously is a NASA drone, and so it was produced by the good folks at JPL. I've been to JPL. I actually saw
that. Is that drone solar powered, right?
Hmm?
That drone solar powered?
I don't think so. I think it's battery powered. I think it has a limited amount of battery. I think it has a small battery that was charged by Perseverance, and then once that battery is depleted, I think it's done.
Oh, so this is the only stuff we'll see from this thing?
So Ingenuity is a proof of concept. It actually, the only science impact that Ingenuity has is to prove that you can actually have rotor powered flight on the surface of Mars.
Okay.
It also does have a camera.
Okay, real quick. When I asked Matt about this, he sent me to a video of a drone being tested in a quote unquote vacuum, but there was no way to tell that it was a vacuum. Like there was nothing, like, you know, you could like put a glove in there or something, because I've actually seen videos where they're faking vacuum stuff, and sorry I have to keep stopping the talk and stuff. It's the echo thing. I swear I'm not retarded and I can formulate thoughts. I'm trying to deal with this technical difficulty and make it seem presentable, and it's really difficult. I'm sorry. It probably makes me seem crazier.
No, I would not say that you seem crazy.
Okay, so
I just want to highlight that Ian, my former student, actually has corrected me, and apparently Ingenuity is solar powered.
Okay, so from my understanding, real quick, of solar power then, is that how does that drone clean off the solar panels so that it can keep getting light efficiently? Don't those have to be cleaned a lot? Like, I know some people that do like off-grid homesteads, and they have to clean their panels constantly. And you know, Mars being a dust planet with dust storms,
that is a very real consideration. And some of
how is that
Pathfinder,
factored?
I think it's Pathfinder was one of the first drones. It died because it couldn't clean off its solar panels. Eventually, it couldn't power anymore. One of the, I don't know if it's, Ian probably knows better than I do. Either Curiosity.
No, shout out to Ian. What's good, dude?
One of the two smaller rovers actually also has failed because of the fact that there was dust all over the solar panels and it couldn't clean it off. So I believe they do have techniques to clean the mirrors. They also will move the drones in or move the rovers into positions such that it is less likely for dust to move onto the solar panels. But astronomers will also tell you, because I just recently, within the last two or three months, actually sat in on a talk by someone whose her job is, she is a atmospheric scientist for Mars, and one of the open questions is, how does wind actually work on Mars? And so Curiosity and something or other, Spirit and Opportunity, that's what those were.
It sounds like she's about to make another mathematical construct.
No. But what the thing was, and this is the proof of concept that was going on, is it was an open question as to whether or not, because we had to simulate, we had to use mathematics in order to figure out, all right, we need rotors of this size, this shape, in order to create sufficient enough lift in a Martian atmosphere. Because we can potentially, I'm sure JPL has the capability of simulating that environment using some kind of vacuumized space, not a pure vacuum, but some less than perfect vacuum. They're able to reproduce it, but not perfectly, obviously. And so one of the reasons why Ingenuity was sent out was because they wanted to know whether or not this was actually possible. Because some of the questions that they had were that I've forgotten her name, like, what are the winds like on Mars? I mean, we know from a overall kind of global perspective, but from a localized wind gusts, we really don't know. We don't know if there was going to be like massive gusts that would just knock the thing out of the air. We also didn't know whether or not the atmosphere really was thick enough for those rotors to actually grab onto and kind of lift up, as it were. So there were a lot of open questions, and that's why we we sent the rover there to.
So, can you do you know anything about the technology involved in how we're able to communicate with a remote control car that's millions and millions of miles away, and then like we hit the signal and it comes back, and like how are we able to pick that out of the background? Like, how does nothing?
Simple radio communication. And the thing that you want to keep in mind is that it's not like there's a guy with a PlayStation 4 controller driving this thing around. What happens is that there is software on board these rovers or these vehicles that basically they will say, all right, they will send out a signal, start.
What's the signal strength required to reach Earth from Mars? How do you calculate that? Is that something we could look up right now on the fly?
I don't know. I honestly, that is not my expertise. But yes, we do have the. I imagine that we have the ability to send out radio signals with that kind of power.
I feel like there's some sort of limitation to that, man. Like I've heard that the inverse square law, you know, when you're like how things break down over distance. Have you seen that presentation he's done?
Bob Nodell's presentation on the inverse square law is exceedingly flawed. And if you want good debunks of that, you could try Blue Marble Science. Blue Marble Science.
I've heard of that guy before.
He has done an excellent response to Jeranisms, and I think it's Jeranism has done it. Bob Nodell has done it, and is it Flat Earth Observer? Might be Leo. Level Earth Observer, I think it was, also did an inverse square argument, and their assumptions are just wrong. I don't usually like to say that someone is just flat out wrong, but they're just flat out wrong. They did the
if it's like refutable information that I can understand, like I'm willing to change my point of view on stuff. That's why I'm like here to talk about this stuff.
Yeah,
because like I know for a fact that we're fed so much like the levels of deception going on. Like I know all that's real for sure. Like I might be getting tricked on some math stuff that I don't understand, but I understand programming and stuff and like how to do mind control, man. Like that stuff is super straightforward.
Well, so Ian raises a good point, which I hadn't really considered, is that there is a Martian orbiter. There is a satellite in orbit. And so basically we send the command to the orbiter to say start flight 1. And then the orbiter will relay that command down to Ingenuity, and then Ingenuity will run a program called Flight 1, which will cause its blades to spin at a particular angular speed for a particular time, and that will cause the rover or the drone to fly up for like 8 seconds and then fly straight back down. So it's just running a program. There's no active controls at all. It's just running a program on a computer.
Okay.
So that's basically how the rovers are operated. Is that a set of computer commands is sent is radioed to the orbiter. The orbiter then radios those commands down, or at least the command phrase to activate the program that's already pre-installed. On that I'm not entirely certain.
Right.
But essentially,
what you're describing makes sense. In terms of how it works theoretically or whatever. Well, I don't believe any of that stuff's real, man. Like satellites and stuff, like all that data. I feel with the balloon program, which I'm sure you're aware of, is just like you could fake that.
I suppose you could, but I get into the question of why, and I think I understand the rationale for resources or what have you. I've heard a number of different reasons for why they will want to control us, but what I want to kind of come back to is, again, you had made some comments about faith, about
okay,
faith has informed your that essentially it almost, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost seemed to me that if we could somehow prove to you that the Earth was a globe, that would somehow disprove that God exists.
Let me think about that for a second, because I don't think that's true, but what would that mean? Trying to think. I haven't even thought about, like, I've so far removed myself from the possibility of it being a globe that I haven't thought about the fact that I could be wrong about this in a minute. So give me a second.
Sure.
Okay. Like, I haven't thought about how it would affect me spiritually, really.
So was I mistaken in that I thought that your faith actually informed a great deal on why you believed the Earth was flat or not?
Well, I believe it's flat because of the things that I 1 sec, the echo thing.
Sure.
Okay, so the reason that it informs what I believe or whatever is because all ancient cultures, you know, like they all have the idea that it's flat. We're in an enclosed environment. The sky clock above us, blah blah blah. That all makes sense. They've built structures around it, like we've talked about, and it's just not possible to me that God would make stuff like that insane. So yeah, I guess it kind of would. I guess it is kind of tied to my faith because it really gives me an understanding of what was created that I feel is being obfuscated from people on purpose, because it makes it easier for them to control and then to understand you know, like how the fiat currency system works, and how, like, if you look at the world debt calculator and you look at what we bring in tax revenue.
So
sorry.
I want to again. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good.
Going down a rabbit hole, but I kind of want to touch on you were talking about ancient civilizations, and so I kind of want to maybe I looked that on there, but how does the ancients inform as to, because yes, the ancients had a fairly,
because they understood the sky without fake technology, and they built massive structures that align to it.
Yeah,
they pay tribute to it, and it dictates like agriculture, which is how we make our food, which is how we how we live and survive. Like it completely dominates. Like the sky clock dominates everything in a way that that we're obfuscated from in our daily lives because of technology, and we're told that that because of like satellites and Earth orbits and all this other stuff, and it's like it's to like hijack fake credibility so that they can run other scams.
Let's look into that a little bit. So I have mad respect for the Egyptians. Just what they did with the pyramids.
There's no evidence they built them. There's no evidence they built them.
Wow.
No, dude. Okay, so you can look at the structures that they've made, like some of the statues and stuff. They're perfectly symmetrical. You can't make a perfectly symmetrical statue with human tools, right?
Okay, so now I'm really confused. So in one sense, you're saying that the ancient humans created these amazing structures on a simplistic or on basically a simpler view.
I'm saying I don't know who made them, but the mainstream narrative that the Egyptians made them isn't true. Like they say, what do they say? Slaves dragged rocks of quarry or whatever, and used, like, with the tools available, it's not possible. If you go to a tour on Egypt, and I can link you to a guy that believes in the globe and all that shit, but he's very passionate about the pyramids and stuff, and he goes to Egypt, goes on a tour. They have one of the limestone things there, the stuff that the pyramids are made out of. You can't break it or chisel it into a stone block with the tools that they said they have. And documents can be forged, bro. Our entire history is straight up lies.
Well, all right. So again, I'm having a little bit of trouble with your argument, in the sense that why bring up the ancient Egyptians if humans didn't create them?
Though there's this, humans created them probably, But I'm saying there's no evidence that the Egyptians created them. There are ancient. Dude. I think the Earth could be super old, man. Like the possibilities really.
That's interesting.
Like it doesn't. Like I think we're super old, bro. There's old systems. There's old world systems of technology of how to make natural energy and stuff, and then with these structures of how they're aligned and how they're on ley lines.
So
Like they're for harvesting energy.
So you believe that God created intelligent life, and that intelligent life has been around for far longer than we believe it to be, than mainstream science would have us believe?
I believe there's been great resets of history, and that we're currently waking up one and then going into another.
Okay, so I just want to be clear as to, because this is something I haven't heard before. So are you saying that there were intelligent beings on the Earth millions of years ago?
I don't know about the time frame because when you get into millions of years and thousands of years and source documents of things and how stuff's aged and radio, what's it called, radioactive dating or whatever. Like I don't know, I don't know nothing about none of that, and I've heard stuff that disproves it and fossils and stuff, and how you can make fossils in a shorter amount of time, like within months.
Because I have been hawking other creators. PhD Tony.
Yeah.
You want to look into PhD Tony. He will blow your socks off in terms of the aging techniques of the Earth. His thing is he's a professional geologist. The PhD in PhD Tony is a PhD in geology. He is a lifelong geologist, and he is remarkable at explaining what radiometric dating is, why there are certain problems with it, but overall why the system can be trusted. So PhD Tony, highly recommend looking him.
I will check it out.
But I want to kind of want to come back to not to. I apologize if it seems like I'm cutting you off, but
no, you're good.
I want to come back to, so for you, it's difficult to conceive that there is a vast universe out there that is billions of years old, that is billions of light years in size, because you don't feel that God would create it that way?
Yeah.
Well, why? God is infinite and infinitely powerful, infinitely wise.
No, I feel you, man. But he's also, God, this fucking thing is so annoying. I'm so sorry, man. This echoing thing. It's killing me, dude.
If you want to mute me, great. If you have to sign off, that's fine.
Yeah, too. No, I'll mute for a second. Okay, so
oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
He's all powerful and all that, you know, as they say. But like he has form and structure to what he builds, right? He doesn't just build things out of chaos. Like we don't just have things for no reason, right? So to me, it appears nonsensical that any of the stuff that's claimed makes sense, because it would just have to be. It would go through such an unbelievable process, and like, okay, we're in this Goldilocks zone. Like out of all this stuff, like yeah, it's possible he could design it that way, but when you understand it from a perspective that that if you go with what you can observe and test in your life, where you can see that water finds a level, and that's really it. Like the whole curvature thing that we were talking about. Like I don't know nothing. I don't know anything about that. I just know that water's level. Maybe you can elaborate more on that part. But that's as far as I know. So we would have to be on some sort of level plane in my eyes. And like how the tides work and all that, like, you know, who knows? But when you have another understanding of that, and you hear about how things make more sense with electromagnetism and stuff, because I guess the force of gravity is like 10 to the 39 times weaker than electromagnetism or something. Is that right? Are you familiar with that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Do you briefly know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know.
Just a hand gesture if you get it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like stuff like that that's actually measurable and that you could see seems more more real and more plausible than the fake stuff. Because even though like the explanation that you gave to me about the Mars rover, that's a fair point. I hadn't considered that, and I'll have to look into that. And I feel like if they wanted to present that more fairly in the test that they did in the vacuum, they could put sand and stuff in there to see if it blows, because they would want to know if it's going to blow sand all over itself, right? All over the solar panel or something. Like they would want to know how much dust it's going to kick up, right? Like that would be a factor from an engineering standpoint that you would think of, right?
The thing is,
and all I mean now, so you can.
Oh, am I live?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Sorry, I was just thinking with. I'd forgotten that I was muted. But just real quick, I will say that unfortunately we run into a problem because the rover, or the thing that we're looking at, or the thing you're trying to prove, was built by an agency you don't trust.
That's true.
Even if they actually did have, because I don't know, did they have an experiment where they put the rover in a dusty environment, in a low pressure dusty environment?
They may have to find one,
but they may have, but they may not have. They may not have tested it. 2, they may not have made that those records available for one reason or another. But even if they did, why would you believe it?
It would help. It would help show consistency if they could show something that backed it visually, right? Because that just goes back to the CGI virtual reality stuff that they do.
They would. I think they would come back with, well, they've shown you plenty of evidence of spacewalks with space shuttles. They've shown you plenty of spacewalks with the ISS, and you don't believe any of that.
That's true, but you could tell those are fake, though. Like you could tell when a video is legit or not. Like for example, you guys say that bending a laser over water isn't a good example of determining curvature because of refraction, right?
That's correct.
And then so at the same time, though, if you do the laser experiment at night and you can see a reflection of the laser across the water and it's also still flat, wouldn't that be fair to assume that like it's reasonably flat, like it's not curved at all, since it's not distorted by that sort of thing either?
No, I would not, because the issue is the laser travels through the same amount of atmosphere and is affected in the same way, going towards the source, hitting the water or whatever target is, and then being reflected back.
No, I'm saying the reflection of the laser on the water, like under it, is flat too, and you could look at it all the way back to the source, and it appears flat. It doesn't seem to be distorted. Now, does that?
I would have to look at that experiment, but it sounds to me that it's so. Sorry if I misunderstood you, but the laser gets they fire a laser out.
Yeah, and they make
something, right?
They make direct line of sight contact, which I understand they would be undergoing the bending, right? Yep. Like that you're saying. But also, if you look at the water in the video, the reflection of the laser going over it, that's also flat and not distorted at all. And if water was curved, wouldn't that reflection also be distorted? If water was curved,
because one, again, see, this is one of the problems that I found with the flat Earth movement is that when you ask me, wouldn't you expect it to curve? My natural response is, sure, but I don't know by how much. Is it perceptible to the human eye?
Fair enough.
Probably not.
Fair enough. So would it be more fair to say that there's no optical way to detect it?
No, the curvature, there is an optical way of detecting it. It's not by using lasers, though. It's by using the technique that you can find on MC Toon's channel, which is the triangle separation between two objects.
Okay,
using spherical trig.
I'll have to check that out, because that's where I'm lacking in some knowledge on that, the spherical trig.
So I kind of want to touch back on, you were talking about, yes, I fully believe that God created the universe in an understandable way. I believe that humanity at some point can know almost, I believe that humanity can know as much as its imperfect self can know anything. I believe that humanity can know how the universe operates. I don't think that humanity is ever going to understand why it operates that way, as in what is the motivation for why G, the gravitational constant, is what it is. But I know, but I believe that humanity will eventually be able to answer all these various questions to the limitations of the human mind. That being said, why does the construction of the universe that God created, why does it need to make sense to you? Because for me, my relationship with God, I could know nothing about how the universe works. You could strip everything out of my mind in terms of physics, astronomy, what little I know of chemistry and biology. You can strip that all gone, and that's not going to affect my relationship with God at all, because it comes down to faith. I have faith that the universe that He created is logical and will not be the spiritual death of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's my question is, why does the universe need to make sense in order for God to exist?
Because you should be able to see the truth in nature. You shouldn't need a TV screen or an algorithm to interpret and make images for you to present a reality for you that only exists in a TV screen.
But so
there should be demonstratable things of the phenomenon that happen in space if it operates. Like if we could see it on Earth, it should apply out there, and if it doesn't, then you would have to go and test it. But the problem is the stuff that when they go and test it, man, like you say it's real and you think that the moon landing happened, but like I don't, man. Like, and I can't get on board with that stuff anymore because I know that it could be fake, and I've gone down so many quote unquote rabbit holes, but like it all turns out to be. A lot of it turns out to be true, and then you can see how they use media narratives to control everything. And once you're aware to that, it makes it difficult to trust anything really. So you start replacing the science that you know with stuff that you could see in your life, because you just can't trust that stuff.
To hawk another creator, Ian is suggesting Professor Dave, who I also as well suggest.
I've seen a couple of his videos. I don't think that he's the right guy to teach me anything.
I haven't mentioned Professor Dave before because Professor Dave is a bit antagonistic in terms of his viewpoints on communicating with.
Even if that guy's right, I wouldn't want to be associated with him. You know what I mean? Like if he's the most right dude ever, like. Just go, I'm straight.
You don't want to have a beer with that guy.
Right.
Yeah. I hear you.
But I will check out the other dudes. I haven't really looked into them, so if I'm able to receive their information, I'll definitely check it out.
Cool. The thing is, though, and this is kind of a challenge. Again, I'm going to challenge you. Is that so? You will, and maybe I'm overstating this point, but. You've mentioned Bob Nodell, for example. And, you have, and I think it was Jeranism, or at least the Flat Earth Institute, or whoever did the laser test.
The Flat Earth Core or something, I think it's called, or Flat Core, or Iron Realm, or something.
Yeah, FE Core, I think it is.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
You seem to be able to trust their measurement, or their experiments, and I want to touch on that in a moment. Their experiments, but you don't want to test my expertise, or at least not fully. Like when I tell you things like that gravity is a thing, that it can be measured, that we can quantify it, you have, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not something that you're on board with.
I mean, I know when you drop something, it falls. I'm not trying to argue that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone is. It's more of a question of whether or not do you believe Anthony Riley with his relative.
Because we're talking about the cause of that, right? Like you're saying that it's the Earth, it's mass, right?
Mass.
It's a mass attracting mass, which is like I haven't experienced that in my life. The only thing I've ever seen anything like that is magnets, where things attract to each other. Like there's nothing. And that guy tried to show me the Cavendish experiment stuff, and like,
oh, that was Blue Marble Science. Blue Marble Science literally recreated the Cavendish.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I did see one of his videos. He does seem like a nice dude. But even still, like, it didn't sell it for me, and I don't know what I'm looking for.
It sounds like you're looking for an experiential. You're looking for an experience, like when you say that you haven't experienced gravity. That's true, because gravity is a very, very weak force. I mean, we don't experience gravity. I mean, we experience gravity, but we kind of take it for granted because we experience gravity in that we feel weight. You know, if gravity weren't a thing, if gravity didn't exist, if mass didn't attract mass, we wouldn't feel weight. We would just feel weightless. But I get what you're saying in that you can pick up magnets and you can feel the attractive force between the two.
Right.
But if I picked up these things,
and I'm not even saying it's strictly magnetic, but I'm just saying like that's an example of a force that you could feel.
Yeah.
Other than everything everything goes down.
But you can't. But scientists will tell you there is a force between this pen and this bottle that's pulling them together, but you don't feel it.
But how can you measure that if you can't feel it?
You can measure it because if your instruments are sensitive enough, and that ties back into with the laser experiment is, did they actually give you any numbers? Did they
for which one?
The laser, the refraction of light.
Yeah, I'd have to go and look at it. But yeah, he talks about like how he's talking about like the distance and how high and all that.
Yeah, but does he have a measurement of flatness? Does he say that this the light ray did not deviate from a straight line?
I see what you're saying. No, I don't recall him ever having anything presented like that. But there is a guy. I don't know if you've seen his videos. He measures flatness and does like surveying and stuff. But I don't understand the math that he presents. But he's saying that the stuff that he surveys and checks out and how it works, it's all flat.
Yeah, if you get into MC Tunes, you'll find out that there are two. Basically, there are. It all deals with precision. So if you are measuring the distances between or the heights of things or what have, if you're surveying an area that is relatively small, you can actually ignore the curvature of the Earth because the curvature of the Earth is small with regards to the distances involved. But if you get to bigger areas, like for example the size of the United States or what have you, or not even that, even like half the mountains that you can see, like hundreds of miles, the curvature of the Earth is significant with respect to those distances.
Okay,
so
well,
there are times when you can ignore that the Earth is curved.
Would you say like 16 miles would be a good representation that you would be able to see some curvature of an observation between two locations?
I don't know.
Because I
don't think so. I think it has to be on the order of 100.
If you remember the B.O.B. and Neil deGrasse Tyson thing, the argument was he could see two cities or whatever, like all the way at the bottom or whatever, like perfect view of them. And then the area in between them was like 16 miles and it's like perfectly flat. And he was saying if there's curvature, shouldn't the area between that city and that city shouldn't you see curvature? Like that was his question. And then the Neil deGrasse Tyson narrative came out where he was like trying to make it seem like he should see, why could he see the city at all? And he was like, because the skyscrapers are above the horizon and you're a stupid retard. And then he made it about a thing that it wasn't. And that's a lot of things. And like, that's a big thing that we latch onto for how it's all propaganda and fake narratives, because the only thing that he could say about curvature is if he made it about a thing that it wasn't, because it was just an honest, genuine question. And look how they dunked all over him. I made him look like a retard.
Yeah, the old straw man argument, and I very much try to avoid that. I will be perfectly frank. I am not a fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson. I have never been a fan of his really at all for a number of different reasons. So, and I get that. I get the frustration that you're asking an honest question, particularly if you are asking an honest question. If you really want to know the answer to these things, and you get belittled, or heckled or what have you, then that's bullshit.
It seems like a mechanism of control to where you can't question it.
No, you should always be able to question what you see. Now with the BOB thing, I don't know it specifically, but if you're talking about if he could see the skyline for 16 miles, again, I'm going to come back to, you say he can see all the way to the bottom. Can he see all the way to the bottom? Is none of it blocked? And did he measure it? Did he measure to see whether or not, did BOB actually measure to see if any of it was blocked? Or did it just appear that it wasn't blocked based on what his eyes?
I mean, that's a fair counterpoint, I think. And that's another thing to where, like, I'm not even convinced that we're even able to discern with our eyes if there's any curvature. Like, I know you say that you can measure it, but like,
no, I don't think you can. I don't think that the human eye, I mean, I could be wrong. But
because our eyes curve, right? So we have a natural built-in curve too.
Well, no, it's more of because I'm an astronomer, I really appreciate scale. And so, for our human eye, the human eye only has a certain, basically what we call a field of view, or an angular size in which it can see. And it only has a certain depth of field, meaning we can only really make out or distinguish things out to a certain distance. And if you do the simple trig on that, the distance involved, the linear distance involved to the horizon that we can differentiate, is small with respect to the entire globe. And as I was saying with the surveying, local surveyors can ignore the curvature of the Earth because the precision of their measurements is such that it wouldn't matter if you accounted for the curvature of the Earth or not, because the curvature is small on those scales. So I think, it's a matter of a lot of the questions that folks have, or a lot of things that you would ask, can I give you an example of water sticking to a ball? Unfortunately, I really can't gravitationally, because gravity is such a weak force. I would need a planet size mass in order to do that.
See, I understand that part of why you can't, and at the same time, that's the part that gets me, because it's like there would have to be some fractal way to represent that, because that's pretty much how everything is.
Well, that's kind of what the Cavendish experiment is attempting to do, is to actually be a localized experiment that illustrates mass attracting mass. And unfortunately, you will have to take my word that the mathematics, or what Blue Marble Science is showing you with the movement of that laser, that does perfectly well explain that mass is being attracted, those two lead balls are being attracted to each other.
Can you do it with anything other than lead balls?
He did it with Coke.
A bottle of Coke?
He did it with an 8-pack of Coke.
Okay.
And he proved that the masses were attracted to the 8-pack of Cokes were attracted to the...
And the measurements came out the same as the lead balls? Like it all works out?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I'll have to see if I can wrap my head around it.
See, that's the thing, is that to me, that's what proves God. Well, not proves.
Yeah.
That's what God is
for
me.
Yeah.
Because, it works. It's physics. It works. Like, that's beautiful. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a big iron ball or an 8-pack of Coke. It's going to do just what we expect it to do. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's so kind of tying it back into. Sorry, got excited there for a second. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with it.
Oh, well, I can answer Ian real quick.
All right.
I've seen ones where they quote unquote send them up and it's flat. So like I don't know if I can even trust anything from a flat Earth as well perspective.
Mm.
Because with the camera being flat too, like I've seen it presented as straight flat as well. So I wouldn't be able to distinguish anything from that, other than like, does it look super edited or something, And then, so this guy said that there's no, just a POE. What is that?
Was this one? Or, oh, POE. He thinks that you're a Poe. So there is something called Poe's Law. Poe's Law is that if you get a con man who is sophisticated enough, they can basically sell you a story to make it look like they are, in fact, ignorant. So he's basically he's asking if you're a con man. He's asking whether or not you actually believe the Earth is a globe, but are pretending to believe that the Earth is flat.
Oh, no. I straight up believe everything. Like, I know for a fact that we're not on a spinning ball in space and all that shit's fake. Like, I'm not being like I might not understand some mathematical aspects of it or something, but the only thing that I do understand is that water finds a level and that it requires a container. So like beyond that, like that's the basic understanding of where I'm at with it. And what would the other guy say? Oh, so the flat Earth model stuff. So we talked about this last time, but have you read the I referenced military manuals and stuff that say, over the flat Earth, but you guys say that it's eventually accounted for or whatever. Yeah, and like, I still maintain, like, is it? How do we know that?
Again, I think so. You may have gotten that from Witsit, who did get that from Nathan Thompson. Nathan Thompson, I think, was the first person to really publicize like 16 government documents which seem to illustrate that the Earth is flat. I think MC Toon actually has those documents on his website. If you read them in their entirety, they don't prove what Nathan Thompson says they prove. They start off with a basic assumption that the Earth is flat, and then build up from there. That's how physics works.
So have you read Propagation of Electromagnetic Fields Over a Flat Earth?
I have not read that. Who's the author?
It's some PhD thing or whatever, or some Army research thing written by some guy. I haven't read it all in its entirety or whatever, but it's
Propagation. What?
I'll link it to you in the private thing because I have a direct link to it.
Okay.
I'll link it in the YouTube chat as well. So I haven't gone over this yet because I just came over it recently and haven't gone over it yet. But like I'm saying, this is another one. Like so if the Earth has to start off to be flat before you can figure out that it's a sphere, like what's happening here?
Well, it's not that it has to start off flat in order. It's that from a physics standpoint, particularly in terms of teaching physics, the theory is that it's to start off simple, to basically take the problem and make it as simple as possible, and then add complication onto that problem once you start understanding the basics. So, for example, trying to understand the motion of this pen hitting the ground. First thing we're going to do is we're going to just assume that there is a gravitational force that is perpendicular to the ground pulling downward and pulling this thing down. And we're going to look at what that means in terms of how fast this accelerates, how quickly it moves, yada yada. Once we understand those principles, we can start making the problem more real world. We can say, all right, now do the same experiment, but have it drop through atmosphere. And so when you have it drop through atmosphere, you add in drag. And so now you can actually understand how this thing is being slowed down because of the medium that it's being pulled into. And then, if you really wanted to get technical, you can figure out what the essentially where the local vector of gravitation actually is pointed, because the chances that it's absolutely perpendicular to the ground is not right. It's slightly off, just by a little bit. a measurable bit, not a detectable bit by the human eye, but a measurable bit. And so if you had a very precise instrument, you could drop this thing, and where it landed would indicate where that force vector was pointed. So it's a question of science education. It's a question of, you start off with very simple principles, make sure that the student understands those principles, and then add complications as you go up as needed for what you are studying. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if all that's real, you know. So, like,
see, the thing is, ultimately what I guess I'm asking for, because, you know, not all of us are gifted in physics. Not all of us are gifted in mathematics. If the world depended on my ability to do finance, we'd all be bankrupt.
We all are.
Well,
even without your ability to do it, we are.
Right, let me have a different example. If the world depended on my ability, if the world needed my ability to do heart surgery, we'd all be dead, because there are just certain skill sets that I'm just not practical at. Either because they don't come natural to me, I don't have the natural inclination or the natural drive to learn them, yada yada. I just don't have them. I have to have faith. I'm not calling this a religion. I do not want this to be conflated into a religion. When I go to a lawyer and I say, hey, they busted me for driving on a suspended, what can you do? And he tells me this is the game plan that is the best for your situation. I have to have faith in that guy, that he's telling me the truth. I have to have faith that what he is doing is in my best interest, because I can't prove it. I mean, yes, I could go to law school. Yes, I could learn the law, all of the laws, and I can do all of that. But honestly, I don't have the time or the inclination to do it. So that's really what I'm asking for you to do with us.
Okay.
Is, we folks like myself, folks like Ian, we are more talented in mathematics and physics, and so we understand these things, and we're not trying to lie to you. We're not trying to deceive you.
I understand. Like, from your perspective, you're not, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think I know what you're going to respond to. In that I am simply being manipulated by a larger mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And I can break that down and make it make more sense, obviously, but there's some certain things we don't want to talk about. But I mean, honestly, man, once you see it, you really can't unsee it, bro.
All right.
It's an intense awakening to realize that you can't trust that stuff.
I get it. I get it.
You can't trust a math equation. Like I don't want to be. Because, like, with my limited understanding of math, and granted, I haven't even tried to apply to learn like any of the, more advanced stuff than what we was taught, basically.
Ian, you were exceptional in math and physics. Always remember that. Sorry, Alan. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I hear you. That it's difficult once you lose the trust in what we would call mainstream. It's hard to get that trust back. When you feel that you have been lied to, or you've been shown that those fundamental building blocks of our society are fraudulent, it's hard to unsee that. Because it's so fraudulent that when you see it and you talk about it, people say that you're crazy because they don't want to deal with it because it's so insane. Yeah. Like I don't want to be the one that doesn't know how to talk to you about math on your level and ask these questions that seem stupid. But if there's nothing that can explain it in a way that I can understand it, then I can't. If I wouldn't consider it being honest with myself to say that I have faith in the globe. You know what I mean? Because for me, it's not even about being right about it anymore. It's about like what's my understanding of it to begin with. Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's a much easier to understand it through a level plane and all that, because it's what I can see, and it's, you know, you go out to the ocean, the water. Yeah, it's like it makes sense. Like you go to a pond, it looks similar. The weird stuff that they lie about with Antarctica that we talked about, like, you know, that seems very narrative-y to me. You know, and there was recently a guy that quote unquote got arrested, and that whole story could be a fake to further propagate what the Antarctic Treaty, you know, supposedly seems to be. So like that entire story could be fake, just to maintain that lie. And that's really where we're at with it. You put a great deal of faith in civil engineers who design roads you drive on. I mean, but do any of those people account for curvature? And when you build a home, it's level, right? Like you don't build it crooked.
They may not account for curvature, but I guarantee you they account for gravity.
I mean, well, I'm like, that doesn't have to account for like that doesn't mean that there's if they're not accounting for the shape of the earth, then I wouldn't be able to discern they're accounting for the downward force, because like we all know that that's a thing. But if they're not accounting for curvature, then in my mind I can't accept that it's a factor at all.
But the thing is that they are accounting for gravity.
Right.
Gravity is actually independent of
I've heard that they don't, Ian, and I've seen pictures of where you can see them out for miles and they're not on a clear day and all that, because, you know, the refraction in the atmosphere, blah blah blah. But you can see instances where they're also flat. So
are you talking about this? Are you answering that question, or? Oh,
I was answering Ian because he said he said very long bridges account for curvature, and I'm saying I've seen presentations where they show these long bridges and they don't.
Yeah, Ian was where Ian was located. There's the famous Pontchartrain image where you look over Lake Pontchartrain, and there's this series of electrical poles that go out, and it's a very nice picture of curvature.
Yeah,
I have seen.
I think that's probably the one. Yeah, because that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's the one that typically floats around. But I have seen, because of atmospheric refraction, I have seen counter examples using that same scenario. So yeah. I get what you're saying in that sense.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be, if I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't be able to gain any knowledge from that either.
But the thing is, though, with civil engineers, like I said, according to Indy Tiger, they do account for curvature. I will take his word for that, but because I don't know. But I can tell you that they do account for gravity.
Can you show me some blueprints, Indy? Do you have do you have anything, or you can reference or like tell me how you account for it in your personal experience?
But the thing is, again, it's more of it. We get down to trust. We get down to, you know.
Yeah.
I'm letting. What I'm saying is, civil engineers, when they're looking at stress loads, the thing that's causing the load is gravity, and so they have to take that into account. Now, what they're accounting for, and you could look at it in the sense that what they're accounting for is a downward force being caused by something. But my counter argument to that is we can pretty well perfectly describe how that works. Buildings stand up. We can account for stress loads perfectly fine, given our current understanding of gravity. So why is it that you trust them to believe that gravity is true, but not anything else, but not another, like me, for example?
I mean, okay, so let me ask you this, man.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever looked into 9/11? Like, have you ever heard?
We're not going to go to 9/11. We're not.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Well. Okay. Well. Let me just. Once you understand that that's not possible, and what that was, and how it was used, and what it fueled, and the mechanisms behind that machine.
But But what I'm talking about is like the
You
building
can't-
that you're in. The current building that you're in isn't falling down on your head because the architects properly accounted for the stress load of the roof on the walls of the building. The building that I'm in stands because
Right, well, you
gravity was
can't-
properly taken into
Right.
account.
Well, if you're building something like that, like you know, obviously you can't lie about it. You have to build it to account for the things that matter,
Yeah.
right?
And
So
one of those things that matter is gravity.
So,
Is it
but
not?
yeah, but I'm not saying that you're not accounting for like the weight and stress of stuff and how it's affected. But I'm saying like the cause of gravity, where you think it's because of the Earth is a giant sphere and it's attracted to the center because of the Cavendish experiment. I'm saying like I don't know what causes it.
Hold on a second. I'm responding to High Plains Drifter.
Like it's not that it's not happening. No, it's fine. He could call me whatever he wants because it's not a conspiracy.
No. It's he's been.
I mean, if he believes the mainstream narrative of it, that's his fault. That's his ignorance. So he could call me whatever he wants. It means nothing.
No, it's not that I was explaining. He was saying that you should fix your stupid echo, and I'm trying to let him know that you've been trying to do that all night long. So
I'm sorry, man. I'm super technically proficient with. Wait, are they hearing the echo on my end too?
Apparently, yes. I am not.
Dude, that's
yeah.
fucked, man. I am so sorry, dude. I have no idea what's causing it. I was on Streamlabs before and it was fine. Hold on, we have to fix this.
I apologize for that. I am
set
not
up a new
doing
medium.
anything.
I did not know that. I did not know that, man. That's super annoying. Oh man, what the hell is doing that?
I will put this up. This one.
I'll address that in a second, Inquisitor Bacon. Give me 1 sec.
He is a pretty unicorn, Inquisitor Bacon. Just let you know. I saw a picture.
Dude,
of him.
I apologize for the echo. I know that shit's so annoying.
Yeah, and I apologize as well. I don't hear the echo, so therefore I didn't realize that it existed or how bad it was or what.
I'm gonna do the classic restart on my computer real quick. It'll just take a second. I have a fast SSD. It won't take long. I'll be back in a few because there's got to be something
when you're
going
coming back,
on.
I'm probably going to be telling a really silly story, which is not related to any of this.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you're straight. Yeah. I'll let you know when I'm back in the private thing.
All right, cool. All right, so in that's awesome, Bacon. In something completely unrelated news, this is for Tusk, and some of you may know Tusk. Some of you watching may know Tusk or not. And so Tusk was upset because he shared a nightmare of his involving banjo-playing vampires, and the person he shared that nightmare with didn't reciprocate, and so Tusk kind of felt that he looked foolish. So, for Tusk's benefit, I'm going to share my nightmare involving Vulcan vampires. So I was in high school, and this is significant because it is not because of the Vulcan vampires, although that is weird. It's significant because it's the only dream I have ever had that was a two-parter. And it was a legit two-parter. I'm not making this up. So, I don't remember too much of the details other than the climactic, basically cliffhanger. But, so, my best friend and brother from another mother, Vic, he and I went to high school together. And the dream is that the first part of the dream is we're in high school and we start noticing that everyone around us is starting to lose their ability to feel emotions. And their ears are starting to grow, and Vic and I look at each other because we're huge Star Trek nerds, and we're like, dude, are these people turning into Vulcans? Like, because that's just straight up weird if everyone is just turning into Vulcans. And this is the part that's really fuzzy, but for whatever reason, there was a large amount of anxiety about oh God, we're going to be turned into Vulcans, and that's going to be horrible. Now, I don't remember why that was going to be such a bad thing, but that was going to be a bad thing. Ian, thank you for being here. Hope to see you again. All right, Alan, I'm still telling the story, so hopefully we can get to that.
Is it still echoing? God, it is. Man.
So basically, we are trying to find the root. We're trying to find the master vampire, the master Vulcan vampire. And this is a nightmare that I had when I was a kid. We're trying to find the master Vulcan vampire. It's during a Friday night football game. We're hiding out in the bleachers, and he and I get separated. And so, I'm doing my thing. I'm looking around. I'm sneaking around, and then Vic comes in. I see Vic coming at me, and he's coming at me weird. I'm like, "Hey, Vic," and I tell him some kind of joke, and he doesn't respond at all. Like, he is just doesn't laugh, doesn't giggle, doesn't do shit. I'm like, "Dude, that was funny. You got to admit that was funny." And he doesn't say anything. And then he gets closer and closer, and he's not really saying anything. I'm like, "Oh God, they got you, didn't they? Oh God, you're a vampire. You're a Vulcan vampire." And I hold out my hand, and he comes, and his face comes into view, and then I wake up. And I'm like, "Oh Jesus, that just sucked," because it's the anxiety of being chased, of being away from people, and then having your best friend maybe turn on you. It messed with me. And I really wasn't having it the next day at school. I was kind of shaken in pieces, and then the next night it picks up. The mother thing picks up right where it left off. So I go directly into the nightmare, and I'm having my hand out, and Vic is sitting there, and he bites my ass. He, fangs and all, just bites into my hand, and I get turned into a Vulcan vampire. And then I go through a weird dream. The second half of the weird dream is me not being able to emote. I have emotions, but I can't feel them. And then I go around making other people vampires, and that's where the dream is. So that's for you, Tusk. You might be afraid of banjo playing vampires. I am afraid of Vulcan vampires. So I just wanted to get that into the stream at some point somewhere. So there you go. So Alan, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm checking something on my settings.
Bacon, I think I remember somewhere in a Discord somewhere, you in a Discord conversation, if you're still here, would it be fair to call you not a man of faith if you're still here? Or person of faith. I don't want to assume anything.
Hello?
Hello. Oh, Nita, what? A person of faith. Are you a person of faith, Bacon? Do you believe in God, basically? And you can tell me to stuff it. You don't have to answer that question. Okay, yeah. I would love to have. I want to have a conversation with Dave, either streaming or not. Deadly Dave is apparently vehemently anti-religion, and I kind of want to know what the story is there, because I don't believe religion in and upon itself is evil. I believe that religion is used inappropriately for evil purposes, much like the military, for example. The military in and upon itself is not an evil organization and can do good, but it can be used for evil purposes.
Can you hear me, Rob?
Yes, I can hear you.
Damn, it's still doing it.
I think we might just have to deal with it. High Plains Drifter, I believe the explanation for that is that he's not afraid to do the experiments. he freely admits that there are limits to his ability to do the experiments properly. Like, he doesn't have the expertise to, say, do a Cavendish experiment on its own. Alan, I don't want to speak for you, but that's kind of...
No, yeah, that's right.
So,
I mean, I get the concept of it, and there was a time in my life when I would have just accepted it and gone along with it, but I don't understand it, and it still doesn't explain anything further to me, and I'm just being honest about that. And if it's not something that you can convince me on, like, we can move on and talk about something else, because maybe there's something else that you could explain to me about. But I'm just trying to be honest about my level of understanding, because I want to be I don't want to lie to myself about stuff and be like, oh yeah, I believe in the globe because the pictures told me. And math I don't understand. Like, I would rather take the shame of saying, like, that it's not that shape because I don't know it, like, in my personal experience. Alan, like, I'm more comfortable with that now. That's where I'm at in my life with my journey and dealing with all this propaganda and stuff that we live with.
Alan, I am not going to be able to convince you in a single 3-hour stream that the Earth...
No, I know. No, I know. I was just asking you questions about stuff that I still needed, like, clarification for. Like, for example, the Mars thing was super helpful because I do understand that, and that'll be something to keep an eye out for.
And that I am perfectly willing to. I will not lie to you about science. Well, I will try not to lie to you about anything. I will not lie to you
not willingly.
Yeah.
No, that's cool,
in my capacity, in my control, I will not willingly lie to you about science or anything else. So, but yeah, so I'm just really the way I wanted to have the conversation was the reason why I wanted to have this conversation. I need to slow down my speech. Is just to try to understand where you're coming from. It sounds to me like a big issue for you is this trust. Is that the mainstream science or the mainstream what's the word I'm looking for? Not functions. Starts with an F. Narratives. The mainstream narratives, for whatever reason, you have lost faith in them. You have lost your ability to trust those sources, and so now you are looking into other sources to try to explain or try to understand the world that may seem fairly chaotic. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
And I was just curious. For me, I was curious how faith plays into that for you.
Okay, so.
Like,
I'm gonna mute for a second. Okay. So we're shown so much propaganda to keep us in a fear state that the only thing that makes sense to me as to why you would do that is because if they stop doing that constant threat of things, like whether it be some sort of isms or a global event, where people, quote unquote, get sick, like the reason that they do all that stuff is or the only reason that they're able to do that stuff rather is because they've severed people's connection to God and having an understanding that the stuff that they claim about isn't even possible. So that they weaponize science to control people. And the thing that gets you through that is once you understand like why they do that and why they have to invert their creation is because it's so obviously beautiful and like easy to understand and straightforward that you really can't. I don't know if I'm not articulating it good or whatever, and dealing with the mute thing and not having feedback is hard to have a conversation about it. But for me, it's not even faith. Like I know that it's real now, and I know. And one of the things that I struggled with is that knowing how everything's manipulated and stuff, and the false history that we're given. And there's so many ways that that the Bible's used, like with the Trinity and stuff. and like so many different dogmas that you could go down and mechanisms that you could use to control like vast majorities of people, you know what I mean? And like tell them like, you know, if their morality isn't in line with what I say, then you know you'll go to the bad place and stuff. And that's such a powerful thing to control over people, that it's worth more than money, like, because that's why they invest all their fake fiat money into that stuff.
Okay.
It's like we look at it as like, why would they pay for it? It's just like they suppress mechanisms, like they suppress technology and stuff all the time. Like, for example, you can look at an electric car. I'll give you the link for it. Some electric company or hydroelectric company was hired to make an electric car, and it's way better than anything that Elon Musk, you know, and any car that's on the market right now. Like, it's all a fake market, and those cars suck. Like, there's like Reddit posts you can go to where there's like graveyards of them. Like, if anything goes wrong with them, they have to scrap the whole thing. Like, it's just complete. Like, he's only allowed to present these fake cars because, you know, it's just to get people to believe in stuff. And I'll show you the patents and stuff that came out of that hydroelectric company for their car. I mean, in a video on it, if you want to watch it later. I'm not gonna try and have you watch a bunch of videos or anything, but it's fascinating what people can make when it's done honestly, and it's not about how to set up a market to control an industry.
Am I not muted, or am I muted?
You're unmuted now. I can hear you.
So a couple of things on that, and again, I have
to
keep going back to MC Tune. Is that patents actually don't prove that anything exists.
Fair enough.
Patent is an idea. It doesn't mean
fair enough. They show some proof of concept though in their presentation video, and again.
But I wanted to come back to you started that off with saying that they needed to sever the connection with God in order for the manipulation to take hold, in order for them to basically be able to do this manipulation. What is that connection with God that was severed? And how, by making it, how is it that making the earth, say, more complicated, how is that severing the connection with God? Because it hasn't severed the connection with God with me.
Because then you can only understand it if you go to a priest, right? Because that's how it used to be. The Bibles and stuff used to be in Hebrew or something.
Yeah, Latin. For the Roman Catholic Church, the Bibles were in Latin.
Right. So if you want, right. So the same concept, and these same people that know these mechanisms of control, like they still use them. So the idea that we know anything from these official sources in mainstream history and stuff is like it's such a big leap of faith for me that I can't go back there.
But I'm just keep coming back to is that there are billions of people in this world who believe in God in one form or another, who believe in the mainstream scientific narrative. So if their intention is to, if their intention is to sever that connection via this idea that we are on a globe in a vast universe, they're not doing a very good job of it, because they're not doing like I said, they haven't severed my connection with God. So,
well, like I said, your interpretation of what they've presented is different, so it works differently on you. But my understanding of it overall is that it's mind control. So, like, I might not. So, like you know, I keep repeating myself, but you know, I don't understand the math. But I know there's ways that they could that you could be measuring stuff and not realize that it's not what it is.
Do you believe that my connection with God is severed, though? Do you believe they've succeeded?
I can't answer that for you or for anyone else. So I wouldn't be able to say. And because you're able to see it, maybe that's part of why. Because I've been thinking a lot about like the rules and how you can present things to people and wake them up to quote unquote a different version of reality, or that they can understand like false flag events, for example. It's very hard, and nobody wants to open their mind to it, even though you can find declassified documents, like source documents from it, you know, quote unquote, and they'll still deny it. And so I'm thinking there may be predetermined. I'm gonna mute for a second. There may be some sort of predetermined, or like you might not be able to like wake somebody up to something, you know what I mean? Or like show them, like they might have to see it on their own, and their own interpretation of that guides them. So I don't believe that like that your belief in God is like any wrong or any lesser than mine or anything like that. Because if you've come to that understanding through what you've been presented, then that's, you know, that would be something that God intended for you to have the ability to receive, right? So so it's not the same for everyone. And it seems like for me, the ability to see the beauty and all that and have a relationship with him is having an understanding that, you know, we're in a flat closed system, basically. For me, that's where the faith comes in, or, you know, you could say. And that's that's really it. And I feel like, because from where my perspective was before, like we talked in the comments, you know, I spent my whole life so depressed and just fucked up on emotional stuff from different things, and you know, to be where I'm at now and have a connection with, and have an honest connection with God, where or you know, a creator, like, I don't even know if God's even the right word, because I've heard different, you know. So like I prefer to say creator, because it just kind of, everyone can kind of understand that, you know. At least there's a, no, you're good.
Yeah, I typically will, my default is divine, if I get to speak generally.
Yeah, because if you say the wrong dogma trigger word, like, you know, you're gonna get someone telling you you're doing it wrong, and there's nothing worse than that, right? You know, you're having your personal connection wrong, but but what's interesting to me though is, because I've met people in my life, you know, that quote unquote had a spiritual connection, and they've tried to explain it to me, and like, it just, you could see the disingenuousness to what they were saying, like they didn't even believe, and that because that like made it seem like to me that it wasn't real, you know.
Sure.
Because but now I've experienced that, and I can, you know, I can speak on it, like that's real shit. When you have that connection, you do, like when you connect with that understanding, and that's what I feel like I've connected with. So I don't even know that it matters if it's flat or whatever anymore.
So yeah, and that's kind of where I'm coming into it, is because, like I said, my view, my knowledge of astronomy doesn't inform my faith, really.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate, to me, the fact that the universe is so vast, so complicated, and so beautiful. It's beautiful, but yes, it is complicated, but it is knowable. I believe that from a humane standpoint, from a humanity standpoint, the universe is knowable to, like I said, the limitations of the human mind. I may not be able to understand it. I will not be able to understand it. Like I said, when it comes to biology, no, not really understanding a lot of biology, because I have only a limited amount of time on this planet. I only have a limited amount of stuff in my brain, and
right.
so I'm not going to be able to understand that, and that's fine. But so for me, it's not that I need more evidence of God, and not that I would say that the universe being vast and so complex is evidence for God, but it certainly isn't not evidence, I guess is what I'm
yeah, sure.
And it sounds to me as if it was for you, or is for you, that that the complexity of the universe actually seemed to go against your idea of what God is, or what or the divine is for you.
With my understanding of the narratives and stuff, and how it could be used, I think, or you like used to trick people, I think that's way more likely, and that's you know, that's something that we can't really, like, there's no math equation for that, you know, unfortunately, and but I just want to, hold on one sec, let me see what this guy was saying. So he said you use Reddit post as a as evidence. No, not typically, but I'm just saying, like, there's things you could look at where you can see, like, that these cars aren't very good. And people, like, there's even jokes about them in mainstream media about how shitty they are and stuff. So, I don't know. Like your point's equally as valid. Like that, I would accept that, and not, that they're good. So, it's just you can find an answer to it either way, where it's a good car or where it's bad. And then what was your other thing? You answered the question earlier. Oh, 1 sec. So Navy. I don't know, man. I've heard a claim that the navigation stuff doesn't work like that, and so I don't know anything about that. But I do. Here's an interesting one though. So there's are you familiar with like the Navy's railgun stuff? I've seen videos where they're saying that they shoot a projectile from water level to like over 100 miles and hit a target. And would that be possible over a curve? Like, how does it account for the curve? And we're not talking about like a projectile, that could change its trajectory or has like any sort of rocket or anything. It's just like a hunk of metal they shoot out. Yeah, so is there anything you can say about that?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak to railguns specifically, but what I can say generally about a ballistic projectile is if you give an object enough velocity and put it at an angle, then we know enough about the Coriolis effect. We know enough about drag forces.
What's your understanding of the Coriolis effect on the Earth?
That because the Earth is spinning, the Hadley cells that normally would be one big Hadley cell on the northern hemisphere, one big Hadley cell on the southern hemisphere, are broken up into three generalized planes. One's going the mid or the equatorial regions goes from east to west, the mid latitudes west to east, and then the polars go from east to west again because of the deflection. And I just realized that's not a very good explanation.
So would you say that a sniper would have to account for the spin of the Earth when he shoots a bullet because they're spinning under it?
I don't know. Depends on, like, I haven't looked at the range of, so it all boils down to precision. It all boils down to how accurate do you need the placement of that bullet.
Okay, so real accurate, right? Because you're going to take a guy out that's going to kill your buddies.
Yeah, I mean, so
you got to be dead on.
So if you want to know, or if you need that bullet to be placed in a particular area with an error of plus or minus a millimeter, then that I think would inform as to how far away that target has to be in order to account for Coriolis. This isn't a binary question. This is, you always, depending on your precision, you always have to take into Coriolis into account, even if you're going, say, 5 feet. But that precision is very, very small. Like, at 5 feet away, Coriolis
I've heard a claim from long-distance shooters that they don't account for it at all, and they think the idea of it that people think that they do is funny.
I've also heard from a competitive shooter that he has a scope that somehow accounts for Coriolis inside the scope. I don't know.
Yeah, dude. See, isn't that fascinating though that we're presented with all these different narratives? Because
the thing is, where I think you and I differ is, I'll say I don't know. I don't know whether or not I have my doubts as to how that's possible, but it doesn't. But I have seen evidence of Coriolis in other things, like for example, hurricanes can't be explained by any other mechanism than Coriolis. And please tell me you have not been told EM wake.
What's EM wake?
Great. Ignore that. Just never look into EM wake.
Oh wow!
Complete bullshit.
EM wake. I at least have to check it out just to.
All right, it's something that Nathan Thompson came up with.
Oh, it's not
why hurricanes are a thing. But the thing is, with the sniper narratives, that's all apocryphal data for me in that I don't know these individuals that you speak of. The individual that I'm speaking of goes by the name Fohammer. He is a competitive shooter.
Does he have? Do you know if he has a military record? Like, has he ever?
Again, I'm going to say claims, but he claims to have been in the service. He is a protective agent, I think, at this point. I think he's a bodyguard or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah, because the guy I'm talking about has a similar, credentials or whatever, and he trains like people that are in active service and stuff. Like, he runs a business where he trains shooting and stuff. So
yeah, that's what Fohammer does.
Right, interesting, dude. So they both are saying two different. Wow, that's fascinating, dude.
Yeah. So, like I said, for me, that's a wash. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
who to believe, and I have to go to other sources in order to.
I agree. It's a wash. I agree.
So, like, I used to do shooting when I was in high school. I was a fairly decent shot.
Oh yeah.
But it was over 50 yards. So no, I never. My precision was not nearly good enough that I had to worry about Coriolis over 50 yards.
Right.
So I can't speak to that at all. But yeah, that's the thing is that when you talk about having to take Coriolis into effect, it often seems to be brought up into the context of a binary issue of do you take into account or do you not take into account, or can you ignore it? And that is a more complicated question than just yes or no. You really have to need to know how accurate do you need that bullet to be. Like, for example, with a railgun, you know the phrase, close enough is good enough for
horseshoes and hand grenades or whatever.
Hand grenades and horseshoes.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So with a railgun, the amount of damage that projectile can do from 100 miles, you probably don't need to be overly precise with the damn thing. You can probably just get it close enough and you can do some damage. So how accurate do they need to, or how precise do they need to address Coriolis? I couldn't say. Because again, I would need to know to what precision they need that object or that railgun pellet to hit where they
fair enough. Hit. I think that's a fair way to look at it.
So yeah, that's the.
See, those are good questions, man. See, I like hearing this stuff because that's a good response, man. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Let's see. Indy Tiger says gunfire support exercises. You want the shell to be within 1 meter. At what range? Indy Tiger. I'm not familiar with gunfire support exercises. So yeah, out to what range? Yeah, my dad was in the Navy, but he was a corpsman. He wasn't. He didn't really shoot people. He did say that he was in his rifle, or in his, what did he put it? How did he put it? In his squad, he was also occasionally tasked as the grenadier, and one of his favorite things was to shoot heat rounds. But any range, really. You have to be accurate within 1 meter at any range? Jesus, all right. I guess that's the military way of doing things. All right, we don't like nuance. 1 meter. that's your target. Like, okay, rock on. But yeah. All right. So we've been going at this for about 3 hours. 3 hours, 13 minutes and counting. And so I think this has been pretty productive. I don't know about you, but I've definitely enjoyed talking to you about this.
Well, I hope I haven't wasted your time, man, because I realize I wasn't able to.
You certainly haven't. You certainly haven't.
I just I think this stuff's interesting, and I'm at a point now where I'm like reinvestigating the new foundation that I've laid. You know what I mean? Because because through my understanding that everything is a lie, like I'm trying to rebuild, and so I gotta work out my understanding of things. and it's easier to talk to people, and to have someone to talk to about it is, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, and it doesn't always. We don't have to talk always on stream. You can email me, and we can discuss things over that as well. I do not consider any honest conversation to be a waste of time, regardless of what that conversation is. And believe me, I have had so many conversations about Battlestar Galactica that most people would say
Dude,
that I have wasted my time.
Dude, I used to love stuff like that.
So no, I do not. I certainly do not feel like I've wasted my time talking to you now. It has been a very good conversation. More accurately, the range of your deck gun. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking, Indy Tiger, was you're talking about deck guns rather than, say, small arms. So you're talking about ranges of tens to hundreds of meters, or probably tens to maybe 100 meters. I don't know. Anyway. But anyway, getting back, yeah, it's been fun talking to you, Alan. I really thank you for coming on to the stream with me.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to. I feel like I had some more stuff to say about the spiritual stuff to like try and help you out a little bit. But I'd like to email you some stuff to check out, because I've recently, like, I don't know where your understanding is at with the Bible and stuff, but some of the stuff that didn't make sense to me, I actually just started listening to this Muslim guy a couple of days ago, and he has some insights on the Bible that make a lot of sense. And if that's something you're interested in, like, he's not like trying to convert people or anything, but it's just like hearing another understanding of it. And this guy, like, he seems like he's got a pretty good grasp on it, and it makes more sense to me than things I've heard actual Christians say, because I know that there's truth in these stories, that can help us for deal with the reasons why we're here. And you said earlier, that you had a spiritual hole right now, and I hope you're able to reconnect with that, man, because it's
more of I was in a hole and now I'm crawling my way out of it. That's kind of apropos for my life in a lot of ways. But
well, what's important is that you make that journey back, man, and it sounds like you're attempting to try and crawl back, and you I don't want to you said you were going through that hard thing with your family situation where you
it's more of I'm honest about it. I don't have much of a family at this point.
Okay, I didn't know.
No, don't worry about it. I appreciate it.
I just want you to know, man, like you're not alone, dog. I mean, people.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you saying that. I do have.
We're all here for a reason, and the pain and stuff that's happened to you and stuff, man. Like, I believe that it's gonna make you stronger, and you'll prosper in the next life, or however it works, man. Like,
I hope so.
Like you'll get back to that, man. Like, it all happens for a reason, and everyone dies. Everything that happens, we're all gonna experience it,
Well, I'm glad that faith that you're finding in faith has improved your life in terms of your battles with mental illness, things of that nature. So I'm glad it sounds like you're in a better place than you were, and so I'm happy that that is the case, and that faith has been able to do that for you. So same with you. If you're not alone, and we're all here to. I believe the world would be a better place if we just stopped being douchebags to each other and just helped each other out rather than.
Yeah, I think most people are good to each other, and I think that what we're shown on TV is like the worst possible scenario to make it seem that way.
Yeah,
because that's basically how they roll, man. They just show you the worst of it, and they tell you, "Oh, it's happening to you. It's happening to your neighbors." They're just constantly trying to break us, and the amount of effort that it takes tells me that there's an inherent good in humans to live a natural life and coexist with other people. Because like we were talking about earlier with military guns, there's actually constant studies done about how to train people to kill people because we don't want to do it. And they've gone back and they've analyzed, so-and-so, like soldiers were aiming above their targets on purpose, even though that they were being fired at directly. Like, there's different instances you can look at through different wars.
I've heard that. I've heard that story with regards to the Vietnam War, and also in regards to the Civil War.
Yeah, there's tons of them, and that stuff's real, and you can see the repercussions of the programming that has to go in to get a man to do that kind of stuff. Because when they come home, they're all fucked up because they're suffering mortal injuries. Because we, in our hearts, we're not supposed to go to another country and do this type of stuff, and it takes a massive amount of trickery to get us there.
I agree that we are not. That I will agree that. People are not naturally inclined to kill each other.
Dude, we're empathetic. Like we look at,
very thankful for.
Yeah, we look at some people that are upset and we feel sad and shit. Like we feel empathy for them, right?
Yeah.
Like there's people that are so sensitive to that emotion that that it becomes emotionally draining for them to be around other people because they're so sensitive to their fields. And then, like, whatever that field is, but you know what I mean.
People with borderline personality disorder are often prone to that, from my experience.
I mean, see, that puts a negative spin on it, right? Because what's a borderline personality defined as, in terms of like medical science? It's a illness, right? A mental illness. Like it's
yeah.
Like
that's defined as a mental illness. Yes. Well, I don't see that as negative though.
Because it is because it tells you that you're a victim and that you're not right. It's a whole. I think the whole psychology system that they diagnose stuff in is all fucked up in just different ways that they can cover up trickery. Because if you recognize any patterns or see things differently, they say you're a schizophrenic, right?
Well, all right. That's an entirely different conversation.
Okay.
And I will say this: that I am a
I've never been, full disclosure. I've been to counseling and therapy, and the most that they could diagnose me with was severe clinical depression, like chronic depression that won't go away. Like at one point, the one lady thought that I didn't have the ability to experience joy. I forget the word she was trying to diagnose me with that. But the only thing that I've ever been diagnosed with was just major depression, anhedonia or anhedonia or something.
Anhedonia.
Yeah, they thought that I had that. So I've never, and I've had extensive, stuff like that, like counseling and stuff, like all my whole life. And the only time that I've ever felt better is when I got away from that and stopped taking medication, because I was on antidepressant stuff, and it numbed me to the world to a degree that I can't even express to you. Oh, well, actually, I can't express it. So sorry to just ramble on. Do you want to end this? We could wrap this up. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just. I may actually have to bring you back on because that is because mental health is very core to my identity.
Same, man.
I have been in counseling numerous times. Currently, am medications, all that. Done the whole U.S. healthcare system. Rigmarole thing. So I have
do the whole U.S.
But I am glad to hear that you are in a better place than you were before. But I am an advocate for mental illness, particularly awareness that mental illness is not just some monolithic thing called mental illness. That
I definitely agree with you on that.
Differences there are drastic differences in the experiences between someone with bipolar to someone who has borderline, to someone who has schizophrenia, or a phobia. So I am a very strong advocate in that regard for them. So hold on a second. I believe High Plains Drafter has one more question for you.
Oh, okay.
Before we wrap this up. But yeah, I would very much like at some point to have a conversation with you in regards to mental health, but not 3.5 hours into a stream at 1:30 in the morning Eastern Standard. So
answer is the Earth's curvature. If that's your answer to it, then it's fine, man.
The Ask Alan in his wife. People at far southern latitudes can't see Polaris. The answer is the curve. The Earth is in the way. So just real quick, what would be your answer to that question? Just out of curiosity.
My answer to that would be, so if you write a 6 on your ceiling and you go across the room, it becomes a 9, right? So is it at a certain point, isn't there just an invert of the sky? Like, don't they see the moon upside down too, or inverted or something?
They do this. They do see the moon. They do see the moon upside down, but they do not see the star Polaris inverted or not.
Yeah, but they also do have their own star too, don't they? That they can use.
They have an area of space close to the Southern Cross, but they don't have a pole star.
Yeah, I could have sworn they use something for reference though.
They do. They use a small constellation called the Southern Cross as something that's approximately close to the southern
yeah,
pole, but they do not have a southern pole star.
So my answer to that would be then that's just a visual limitation of how the realm works, and at some point, when it's a notification that you're at this point where things are going to change or whatever in the sky and how you look at it, and you need to be conscious of that. Otherwise, your directions will be off or something. It seems like a built-in function to let you know where you're at, rather than letting you know that the thing you're on is curved.
Okay. All right. You are a subscriber to my channel, which I am very, very thankful for. Thank you very much for being for supporting my channel, and anyone.
Oh, no problem, man. Dude, I like to support genuine people, man.
What I will say is that I will be doing a Rob World episode on celestial navigation at some point, and so I hope to be able to address some of those questions. Or
yeah, I'm definitely interested in that, because to my understanding that they used to use all the stars and stuff to calculate to determine where they're going, right?
Yep, they still do.
Right, so they would have to, I just can't get to repeatable patterns out of light at that distance. I think is the big issue for me. It would have to be closer. It just would have to work in some way that isn't as described.
Okay. I will. I will. I plan. I don't know how quickly I'm going to be able to do it, but I am going to get into I am going to do an episode on celestial navigation. I am also going to talk about stellar parallax, which is how we know these stars are at such great vast distances. We do see stellar parallax. It is a verifiable, observable fact. We see the stars shift around. So I will be doing episodes on that.
Cool, man. I'll definitely keep an eye out.
Cool. So I'm going to let you go, Alan, and then I'm going to just wrap up the stream. Just basically give folks a rundown of what to expect next coming up. So.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I'll send you some email on some couple lightweight conspiracies to dip your toes in to some deception, because I think if you had a better understanding of the overall picture, it would help explain some stuff at least. And I think that you're able to receive that, because if you weren't, we wouldn't even have this conversation. So.
All right. Yeah, I will definitely look them over. If you send them to me, I will definitely look them over.
Cool. And then. And feel free, if you have anything that you want to send me that you're like, hey, this is a pretty good proof, and then explain to me why you think that. I'm definitely down to hear it, man.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool, man. You have a good night.
All right, man. You too, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
All right. I hope. Indy Tiger says good night, Alan. I guess I'll put that there. Yay. Real quick, I'm not going to go too much into this, but the conversations that I've had are referred to the 2004 reboot, which I absolutely cannot stand. I think that it is one of the largest pieces of bullshit that has ever been put on screen, and why so many people love it, I don't understand at all. But maybe at some point, Indy, I'll have you on. If you disagree, I'll have you on, and maybe we can discuss it at some point. Just to kind of wrap things up, I appreciate everyone who's been in the chat. Indy Tiger, High Plains Drafter, Ian, my former student Ian, was in here. Metal Slugs Master, appreciate you. Inquisitor Bacon, I'm glad you guys stopped by. That was it's been fun, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. What is coming next? So this is what I've kind of figured out what I'm going to be doing. The majorly scripted pieces of content that I'm going to do. Thank you, Indy Tiger. And I will celebrate myself. So the scripted pieces of content, which are the Rob World episodes, those are work intensive. as I'm finding. And so what I'm planning on doing is I'm planning on putting out probably 2 of those per month. So the next one, which will be actually on The Big Bang Theory, will come out in 2 weeks time. I'm debating whether it's going to be on Mondays or Thursdays. On the off weeks, I will also be doing a 15-minute episodic kind of thing, but I will be commenting on something related to science or faith or both. The next one, which will be coming out, I think Thursday. I think that's what I'm going to have it as premiere. Is Thursday night. I'm going to be doing my initial review of the first 2 chapters of. Do I have it here? Yes, I do. Haha. Of Dr. Jason Lyle's book, Taking Back Astronomy, which is an astronomy textbook. As you can see, it's not very long. It's an astronomy textbook from a creationist point of view, which is rather dissident to my mind. So I will be looking at that, and I will be addressing how I will be reviewing the text as I would review any other text, in terms of what I feel as its quality and its ability to communicate. So that will be coming out on next Thursday. I hope to have a segment on the plot hole sometime soon. Hopefully that'll work out. And I will also be doing Shooting the Stars with the Rob. Those will be live streams on Sundays, probably off every other Sunday. And that will be I will have the guests that I will have on will be educators or people who are in science communication, and I will talk to them about what are the philosophies of science education, what are the philosophies of science communication, what can we do to improve on both. And then interspersed in there, I will be doing random streams where, if the weather cooperates, which it did not tonight because it actively rained during this stream, if the stars align, pun intended, I will open up the telescope and I will stream views of our telescope through the internet. Or I will bore you all with my feeble attempts at astrophotography. And I have a load of images that I need to make pretty. And so I will show you how 3-color images are created so that potentially those folks who are more in doubt as to the veracity of astronomical images will have a better understanding of what actually goes into creating those images that Hubble produces, and so forth and so on. So, all right. With that, I am going to bid you all adieu, peace out, and remember, no matter how dark it gets, you are always stardust.